If you're enjoying this video, smash that like button, subscribe, and hit the bell. Share it with your friends and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. Every like and subscribe helps the channel grow. My name is Frank Harlow. I'm a ranger in the boundary waters of Minnesota. It's 1953, and these lakes and forests have been my home for the past 8 months. I came here to find peace after Korea. Instead, I found something else. Something that's been waiting for me all along. Most mornings I wake before the sun. I take my canoe out when the mist still hangs low over the water. I like the quiet. It helps me forget the things I saw in the war, the things I did to stay alive. This morning is no different. The paddle cuts through the water with barely a sound. Through the fog, the islands look like they're floating. For a moment I can pretend I'm the only person left in the world. I reach into my shirt pocket and pull out the worn photo of my brother, David. He's forever 16 in this picture, smiling at a future he'd never see. 20 years ago, he disappeared on these very waters during our family camping trip. They never found his body. That's why I became a ranger, to be close to him somehow, to maybe one day find answers. I tuck his photo away as the mist parts ahead. Something's not right about the fog today. It's too thick around certain islands, clinging to them like a living thing. As I watch, the mist seems to form shapes. Tall, skinny figures standing among the trees. I blink and they're gone. Just tricks of light and shadow. At least that's what I tell myself. The war left me with more than just memories. Sometimes I see things that aren't there. My unit got trapped behind enemy lines in Korea. No food for weeks. Some of the men, they did things, terrible things to survive. I still have nightmares about it. The sound of teeth on bone, the smell. I shake my head to clear it. I won't think about that now. I paddle toward a small island to check on a trapper's cabin. Old man Jenkins reported hearing strange noises out this way last week. Probably just wolves or a moose, but it's my job to make sure. The island is quiet as I pull my canoe onto the rocky shore. Too quiet. No birds singing, no squirrels chattering. Even the insects are silent. The hair on the back of my neck stands up. In Korea, this kind of silence meant danger. I grab my rifle from the canoe, just a precaution. As I walk up the path to the cabin, I notice unusual markings on the trees. Deep scratches, too high up and too regular to be from a bear. They remind me of the bayonet marks I saw on bodies during the war. The cabin door swings open with a creak. Inside, it's dim and cold, colder than it should be even for early morning. A half-eaten plate of beans sits on the table. The food looks fresh, maybe from last night. Suddenly, I'm not seeing the cabin anymore. I'm back in Korea, sitting around a fire with my unit. The faces of my dead friends stare back at me, their mouths dark with something that isn't beans. I gasp, and the vision fades. I try the radio to call headquarters, but all I get is static and what sounds like whispers. Backward whispers. I've never been a superstitious man, but something feels wrong here. Very wrong. That's when I see the journal on the floor, its pages fluttering in a breeze I can't feel. I pick it up, my hands shaking slightly. The handwriting starts neat but gets messier with each entry. Day 3. Heard something moving outside camp again. Too big for a deer, too quiet for a moose. Day 7. The fog never lifts from the eastern island. Saw something standing in it today. Tall, so tall. Day 10. It's watching me, I know it now. The long one, the hunger that walks. The final entry is barely readable, the pen digging deep into the paper. It wears the face of someone you know. Below these words is a crude drawing of something with a human body, but an elongated head topped with antlers. I drop the journal like it's burning my hands. Outside, the fog is getting thicker, wrapping around the cabin like fingers. And in the distance, I hear splashing, rhythmic like footsteps crossing the water. like someone marching, like something coming for me. The splashing matches the beat of my heart, thump splash, the same rhythm as our marching cadence in Korea. It can't be a coincidence. I grab the journal and hurry back to my canoe. As I push off from shore, I see them, footprints in the mud, six-toed prints that seem to walk right out of the water. I've seen these before, in old newspaper clippings from 1903, the year of the Great Famine, the year when people went missing. Just like now, as I paddle away, the fog follows me. For a second, I swear it takes the shape of a man, a very tall, very thin man with antlers, but when I look again, it's just fog. Just fog. And the growing certainty that whatever happened to my brother 20 years ago is happening again. And somehow I'm part of it now. The fog stayed with me all the way back to my ranger station. Something wasn't right. First the empty cabin, then that strange journal, and those footprints. I needed answers. I dried off and made some hot coffee with shaky hands. While I warmed up, I looked through the old files we keep on the area. I found reports of missing trappers from this winter, the worst famine the region has seen in exactly 50 years. That can't be just chance. The phone rang, making me jump. It was Bill from the main office. "Frank, you need to come in. There's someone here you should talk to." An hour later, I was sitting across from an old Ojibwe man with deep lines on his face and eyes that had seen too much. His name was Grey Feather, and he hadn't set foot in the ranger station for years. "You've been to the islands in the east," he said. It wasn't a question. "Yes." "How did you know?" "The look in your eyes. You've seen it, haven't you? Or felt it?" "Watching you, I thought about the fog shapes, the footprints, the cold that didn't belong. Maybe. What is it?" Grey Feather looked at the map on the wall, pointing to a cluster of islands I'd just returned from. "We call it the Devourer's Territory. My people have avoided those islands for longer than your government has existed." He lowered his voice. "The white men's name for it is Wendigo." "A legend," I said, not really believing my own words. "Is it?" Grey Feather pulled out an old newspaper. 1903. 7 trappers vanished. Before that, 1853, 12 people gone without a trace. And now, 1953. The pattern was clear, every 50 years like clockwork. "What does it want?" I asked. "It feeds on more than flesh. It feeds on guilt, on secrets, on the shame of what men did to survive hunger." His eyes studied my face, like the shame you carry from your war. My blood went cold. I'd never told anyone here about Korea, about what happened when we ran out of food. "Your brother," Grey Feather continued, "he went missing here, yes? 20 years ago?" I nodded, unable to speak. "He found the Wendigo, or it found him." He reached into a small leather pouch and pulled out a copper amulet on a leather cord. "It fears 2 things, copper and fire." He handed me the amulet. "Wear this, but know that once it has your scent, it won't stop, especially if you share blood with someone." "It has already taken." I put the amulet around my neck. "How do you know so much about this?" "My grandfather was the only survivor in 1903. He never spoke of what he saw, except in his nightmares." After Grey Feather left, I couldn't sit still. I went back out to search the eastern islands again, this time prepared. I brought extra fuel for my lantern, matches, and my service pistol, though I doubted bullets would help against whatever was out there. The lakes were calm as I paddled back toward the islands, too calm, like the whole forest was holding its breath. The fog had lifted, but dark clouds gathered overhead. It would storm soon. On the 3rd island, I found something strange. Trees twisted into unnatural shapes, forming what looked like doorways. Animal bones hung from branches in patterns that made my stomach turn. I'd seen similar things in Korea, in the mountain villages where shamans practiced ancient rituals. I took pictures with my camera, marking the locations on my map. A pattern was forming, pointing to a specific island deeper in the wilderness. The island locals called Devil's Tooth for the sharp rock formation at its center. As dusk approached, I made camp on a safe island nearby. I wouldn't dare stay in. Devil's Tooth after dark, not yet. I needed to be smart about this. That night the sounds started, splashing between islands, not like a swimming animal, more like someone wading through water, keeping time, left, right, military precision. I gripped my rifle tighter and fed more wood to my fire. The amulet felt warm against my chest. Then came the voices, carried on the wind. Frank, help me, Frank. It was David's voice, my brother's voice, just as I remembered it from when he was 16. But that was impossible. It's just the wind, I whispered to myself. Just the wind playing tricks. But deep down, I knew better. In the morning, I found fresh tracks around my camp, those same six-toed prints. They circled my tent completely, yet I'd heard nothing in the night beside the splashing. Whatever made these tracks could move without sound when it wanted to. I packed quickly and headed to Devil's Tooth. The island was rocky and steep, with few trees. The massive stone spire in the center looked like a fang against the sky. At its base, I found the entrance to a cave. I clicked on my flashlight and went inside. The beam showed me things I'll never forget. The cave walls were lined with stuffed personal items, a voyageur's canoe paddle from the 1700s, a trapper's knife from the 1800s, a child's doll maybe 30 years old, and there, stuck in a crevice, near the back, a pocket knife with the initials DH carved into the handle. David Harlow, my brother. My father had given us matching knives on David's 16th birthday. I still carried mine every day. I fell to my knees, the truth finally hitting me. David had been here. He had faced whatever horror walked these islands, and he hadn't survived. As I reached for his knife, the temperature in the cave dropped suddenly. My breath came out in white puffs. Outside, the sky darkened as an impossible storm rolled in, a blizzard. In late spring, just like the blizzard that trapped my unit in Korea. I grabbed David's knife and ran for the cave entrance, but the storm had already arrived. Snow blew sideways, blinding me. I couldn't see my canoe, couldn't see more than 3 feet ahead, and through the white curtain of snow, I saw it. A figure standing on the opposite shore, impossibly tall and thin, with antlers branching from its head. Even from this distance, I could see its face, a face that shifted between my brothers and my commanding officer from Korea. It knew me. It had been waiting for me, and now I was trapped. I huddled in the cave as the storm raged outside. No spring storm should be this fierce, this cold. This wasn't natural. I built a small fire from twigs and branches that had blown into the cave, grateful for the matches in my waterproof case. The fire gave me light and a little warmth, but little comfort. Not after what I'd seen on the shore, not after finding David's knife, that thing, that Wendigo. It had called to me using my brother's voice. I couldn't get it out of my head. How did it know what David sounded like? Had it somehow kept part of him all these years? I took out the journal I'd found in the trapper's cabin and read it again by firelight. The last pages were filled with those words. It wears the face of someone you know. Now I understood what that meant. I tried. The radio again, but the storm blocked all signals. Even if it had worked, what would I say? That I was being hunted by a monster from Ojibwe legend? They'd think I'd lost my mind. Maybe I had. Maybe Korea had broken something in me that couldn't be fixed. No. The knife in my pocket was real. David had been here. This was happening. As night fell, the temperature dropped even further. I checked my food supplies, enough for 2 days if I was careful. I hoped the storm wouldn't last that long. That's when I noticed something odd. The jerky in my pack, which should have been perfectly preserved in this cold, was starting to rot. It smelled bad, turning gray and slimy. The same was happening to my other food, all spoiling before my eyes, despite the freezing air. My stomach growled. I'd skipped lunch, and now dinner was ruined too. That night the dreams came. I was running through the forest, but not as myself. I was taller, faster. The trees blurred past me as I chased someone. I could smell fear in the air, rich and delicious. I was so hungry. I woke with a start, far from the cave. I stood in a small clearing, with no memory of how I got there. Snow covered the ground, and my boots were soaked. Had I sleepwalked in this weather? I felt something sticky on my chin. When I wiped it away and looked at my fingers in the moonlight, they were dark, with what looked like blood. Panic hit me hard. I checked myself for wounds, but found none. Not my blood then. An animal's. I didn't want to think about the other possibility. The storm had calmed enough for me to see my surroundings. Dawn was breaking. I got my bearings and headed back toward Devil's Tooth Island, following my own tracks in the snow. Along the way, I found something disturbing, a deer carcass, partially eaten. The bite marks didn't match any animal I knew. They looked almost human, but larger, with teeth too sharp. I hurried past it, not wanting to think about my bloody chin or the dreams. Back at the cave, I gathered my things. The storm had passed, leaving behind an unnatural cold. I could travel now, maybe make it back to the ranger station and get help. I paddled my canoe through the icy water, watching the fog that still hung around certain islands. The silence felt heavy, pressing in on me from all sides. Then I heard it, the splash, splash, splash of something following me. The rhythm matched my heartbeat exactly, as if whatever it was could hear my pulse from a distance. I paddled faster, but the splashing kept pace. I didn't dare look back. "Frank, why are you running, Frank?" My brother's voice again, but different this time, older, wrong somehow. "Remember what we did in the mountains, Frank? When we ran out of food?" That wasn't David's voice anymore. It was Captain Miller's, my commanding officer in Korea. We all did what we had to do to survive. Isn't that what you told yourself? I covered my ears, but the voice seemed to come from inside my own head now. "I'm so hungry, Frank, just like you were." My paddle hit something solid in the water. I looked down and nearly screamed. A face stared up at me from just beneath the surface. Miller's face, pale and bloated. As I watched in horror, it changed into David's face, then back again. I jerked back so hard, I nearly capsized the canoe. When I looked again, nothing was there. Just dark water. But the water around my canoe was starting to freeze. A thin layer of ice spreading outward like fingers. I had to get to shore before the whole lake froze solid. I made it to a small island and pulled my canoe onto land just as ice sealed the water behind me. I was trapped again, but at least on solid ground. This island had a small emergency shelter, just a wooden hut with a stove and some supplies. I broke in, desperate for warmth. Inside, I found more than supplies. Maps covered one wall. Weather. Maps showing storm patterns in the region going back decades. Every 50 years, marked in red, 1853, 1903, 1953. Someone had been tracking this thing. There were newspapers too, stories of missing people, strange sightings. A pattern emerged. The disappearances always started during times of hardship. The Wendigo fed when people were already hungry, already desperate. One article from 1903 caught my eye. A survivor's account, though his name was withheld. He described a tall creature with antlers that could walk on water and mimic voices. He said it didn't just eat its victims, it absorbed them somehow, taking their memories, their faces. The article ended with a quote. "It feeds on more than flesh. It feeds on shame." Greyfeather's exact words. This wasn't coincidence. I found something else too, a leather journal much older than the others. The writing was faded but still readable. "Copper in the heart, fire for the rest. The only way. To kill what was once a man." Once a man? The Wendigo had been human. Night fell again. I barricaded the door and windows of the hut, built a fire in the stove, and kept my rifle close. Outside, the temperature continued to drop. Ice crackled as it formed on the trees. When it melted slightly in the morning sun, the droplets made patterns like screaming faces. I was so hungry. I'd gone a full day without food now, and my stomach felt like it was eating itself. I thought about the deer carcass I'd found. Even partially eaten, there had been good meat on it. The thought made me sick, but my mouth watered anyway. What was happening to me? I caught my reflection in a window and froze. My face looked thinner, my cheekbones more pronounced. Had I lost weight that quickly? And my fingers, they seemed longer. Somehow, the nails harder and more pointed. I was changing, becoming something else. Just like the journal said, the only way to kill what was once a man. The Wendigo had been human once, someone who'd given in to hunger, who'd crossed a line that shouldn't be crossed, someone like me who'd done terrible things to survive in those Korean mountains. The realization hit me like ice water. I wasn't hunting the Wendigo. It was changing me into one of its kind. Morning brought no relief. The hunger was worse now, a constant gnawing in my stomach that made it hard to think about anything else. I checked my reflection again. My face was definitely thinner, my eyes sunken with dark circles beneath them. My fingers looked longer too, the nails harder and slightly curved. I had to get help. The ranger station was too far in this weather, but there was a fire lookout tower on a nearby hill. If I could get there, maybe I could use the radio to call for help. I gathered what little I had: David's knife, grey feathers, copper amulet, my rifle, and the old journal with its cryptic advice. The ice on the lake had mostly melted in the morning sun, so I could use my canoe again. As I paddled, I noticed something strange. The water felt different, almost like it was pulling me towards certain islands rather than away from them. I had to fight the current constantly. Or maybe it wasn't the current. Maybe it was something in me that wanted to go there. The splashing started again, keeping time with my heart. I tried to paddle faster, but my arms felt weak from hunger. The noise grew closer. Then I saw it gliding through the water behind me, not swimming, walking on the surface as if it were solid ground. It moved like a person, but wrong somehow. Too tall, too thin, its joints bending in impossible ways. I couldn't see its face from this distance, and I didn't want to. I paddled harder, my arms burning with effort. The shore came into view, and beyond it, the hill with the fire lookout tower. I just had to make it there, just a little further. My canoe hit the shore hard. I grabbed my things and ran, not looking back. The trees provided some cover, but they also cast shadows that played tricks on my eyes. Every trunk looked like a tall, thin figure waiting for me. The climb up the hill was harder than it should have been. My legs shook with each step, and my lungs burned despite the cold air. The hunger made me dizzy. Twice I stumbled and fell to my knees. The second time I noticed something on the ground. Animal tracks, but strange ones. They started as deer prints, then gradually changed, stretching and narrowing until they became those same six-toed, human-like prints I'd seen before. The Wendigo could change shape. Of course it could. I finally reached the tower and climbed the wooden steps, grateful for the shelter. Inside, I found emergency supplies, including a radio and, thank God, some canned food. I tore open a can of beans without bothering to heat them. The food helped clear my head a little, but the hunger didn't go away completely. It felt different now, deeper, like no amount of food would ever satisfy it. I tried the radio, adjusting dials until I heard a human voice through the static. "This is Ranger Harlow at the Eastern Lookout. Does anyone copy? Over." Static then. "Frank? That you? Where have you been? Over?" It was Bill from headquarters. I'd never been so happy to hear his grumpy voice. "I'm at the fire lookout. There's something out here, Bill. Something hunting people. I need help. Over." "Say again." "You're breaking up. Did you say hunting?" "Over." "Yes, listen carefully. It's what took my brother 20 years ago. It's..." The radio squealed with feedback, then went dead. At the same moment, the temperature in the tower dropped so fast I could see my breath. It was here. I grabbed my rifle and looked out the windows. Nothing at first, then movement below. A figure emerged from the trees, a park ranger in uniform. Relief flooded through me until I realized something was wrong. The ranger moved stiffly, his face blank. Then he called up to me, "Ranger Harlow, Frank. Thank God. I've been looking everywhere for you." I didn't recognize him, but he seemed to know me. Maybe headquarters had sent search parties after all. "Stay. There," I called down. "It's not safe." "What are you talking about? It's me, Jake. Come down, we need to get you back to base." Something felt wrong. I'd never met a ranger named Jake, and his voice had an odd quality to it, like someone doing an impression of a normal person. "If you're from headquarters, what's the emergency protocol code?" I called down. A simple test. Every ranger knew it. The man's face twitched slightly. "Don't be ridiculous, Frank. It's freezing out here. Let me in." He started climbing the tower steps. I pointed my rifle at him. "Stop right there. Who are you really?" His face changed then, not shifting to someone else's, but losing all expression. His eyes went black, completely black. "The town sent me to you," he said, his voice now flat and cold. "They always send someone when the hunger walks. A sacrifice." He took another step up. I fired a warning shot into the air. "Stay back." He kept coming, his movements jerky now, like a puppet on strings. "They know what happens every 50 years. They've always known. A few lives to save the many." Another step. "The Wendigo is controlling you," I said, more to myself than to him. "Fight it!" "No one fights it, Frank. Not for long, you'll see." I aimed at his leg and pulled the trigger. The shot hit him in the thigh. He stumbled but didn't cry out in pain. Instead, he looked at the wound with mild curiosity as dark blood oozed out. "The hunger is stronger than pain," he said, and kept climbing. I had no choice. I fired again, this time at his chest. He fell backward down the steps, landing in a heap at the bottom. My hands shook as I lowered the rifle. I'd just shot a man, maybe killed him. But something told me he was already gone before I pulled the trigger. I climbed down carefully to check on him. He wasn't breathing. Up close, I could see his skin had a grey cast to it, and his fingers were elongated like mine were becoming. The Wendigo had already started changing him. Beside him lay a folded paper. I picked it up and found a list of names, victims sent out into these woods over the decades. Sacrifices to keep the Wendigo contained in the boundary waters. My name was on the list, so was David's, from 20 years ago. The town hadn't lost my brother. They'd sent him here on purpose. And now they'd done the same to me. The realization hit me like a physical blow. All this time, I thought I was here by choice, drawn by the memory of David. But I'd been manipulated, set up as bait or food for this thing. My hands started shaking, but not from fear this time, from rage. The hunger inside me twisted, feeding. On my anger, I looked at the dead ranger again. The smell of his blood wasn't disgusting anymore. It was tempting. No, I couldn't think like that. That was the Wendigo talking, not me. I stumbled away from the body and back up to the tower. I needed to think, to plan. The radio was still dead, but I had shelter at least. I could wait for real help to arrive, if it ever would. Night fell quickly. I watched the sun sink behind the trees, taking what little warmth it provided with it. The cold didn't bother me as much now, which was strange and frightening. In the darkness, I heard scratching on the wooden walls of the tower. Long, slow scratches that spelled out numbers. When I shined my flashlight on them, my blood went cold. 07745532. My military ID number. It was toying with me, showing me it knew everything about me. In the distance, I heard splashing again, coming closer. Then a voice called out, a child's voice this time. "Frank? Where are you, Frank? I'm scared." David. Exactly as he sounded that day, he disappeared. "It's not real," I whispered to myself. "It's not him." but it sounded so much like him. And part of me, a growing part, wanted to go to him, to join him. The scratching at the walls grew louder, turning into pounding. The whole tower shook. "Let me in, Frank." David's voice changed, becoming deeper, older, what he might have sounded like if he'd grown up. "Let me in, and we can be together. Again, like when we were kids." Something massive hit the base of the tower. The whole structure tilted slightly. It was trying to knock it down. I gripped the copper amulet around my neck. It burned against my skin now, but I didn't take it off. Another impact. Wood splintered below. This time, the voice that called out was neither David's nor the Ranger's. It was my own. "You can't hide from yourself, Frank. You can't hide from what you did." A terrible cracking sound came from above. I looked up just in time to see the roof tear open. Cold air rushed in along with moonlight, and there it was, clinging to the outside of the tower like a spider, impossibly tall and thin, its limbs too long, its fingers ending in black claws. Its skin was stretched tight over its bones, grey-white and waxy. Its head was the worst part, a human skull with antlers growing from it, but with enough flesh still clinging to it that I could recognize the face. David's face, frozen at 16, but wrong. The mouth too wide, the eyes sunken and completely black. It smiled at me with too many teeth. "Hello, brother." I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. The thing hanging from the broken roof wasn't my brother, but it wasn't not him either. Something of David was still in there, trapped behind those black eyes. "What did you do to him?" I managed to say, my voice barely a whisper. The Wendigo tilted its head like a curious dog. "I didn't do anything he didn't allow." The voice was a horrible mix, part David, part something ancient and cold, just like you're allowing it now. It crawled further into the tower, its movements jerky but fast, too fast. It dropped to the floor in front of me, standing at its full height, at least 8 feet tall, its antlers scraping the ceiling. "You feel it, don't you?" it asked. "The hunger, the change." I backed away until I hit the wall. "I'm nothing like you." It laughed, a dry, cracking sound. "No? Tell me, brother, what did you do in those mountains in Korea when the food ran out?" Images flashed in my mind. Snow, blood, desperate choices. The taste of no. I shook my head hard. That was different. We were starving. We had no choice. Everyone has a choice. It stepped closer. Everyone can say no, but they don't. They choose to survive at any cost. That's where I come from, Frank. From that choice. I gripped my rifle tighter, though I knew bullets wouldn't stop this thing. "Why us? Why my family?" "Because you were already halfway there." Its long fingers reached toward me, stopping just short of touching my face. "Your guilt made you delicious." It sniffed the air around me. "I can smell it on you now, the change. Soon you'll join us." "Us?" It smiled wider. "You didn't think I was the only one, did you? We've been here since the first winter, drove the first men to eat their brothers. We'll be here when your cities crumble and your people return to the old ways." I glanced at the broken roof. If I could just get past it, maybe reach the ladder. The Wendigo noticed my look. "Running again, Frank? Like you ran from what you did?" It moved with impossible speed, blocking my path. "There's nowhere to go. The hunger always finds you." It was right. I'd been running for years, from Korea, from David's disappearance, from myself. And it had all led me here. My hands shook so badly I could barely hold the rifle. I was so hungry now, my stomach a tight knot of pain. I could feel my body changing more with each passing minute. My reflection in the window showed my face growing. Gaunt, my teeth sharper. I thought about the journals, about what Grey Feather had told me. Copper and fire, the only things that could hurt it. The amulet around my neck burned hot now. I touched it, feeling its power. Then I remembered the old journal's words. Copper in the heart, fire for the rest. And what Grey Feather had said about blood sacrifice from someone already turning. I understood now. I knew what I had to do. "You're right," I told the Wendigo. "I can't run anymore." I lowered my rifle and took a step forward. The creature watched me with those black eyes, curious. "I want to understand," I said. "Show me what happened to David. Show me how he joined you." The Wendigo's smile grew impossibly wider. "Yes, it's time you saw the truth." It reached out with one long finger and touched my forehead. The world exploded into fragments. Images, sounds, feelings that weren't my own rushed through me. David, lost and afraid in these same woods. The Wendigo tracking him, calling to him with our mother's voice. His last desperate fight, then surrender. The slow transformation as hunger and cold worked their dark magic. His consciousness absorbed but not destroyed, awake but unable to control his new form, a passenger in a monster's body for 20 long years, and others too, hundreds of others, going back centuries. Voyageurs and trappers and native warriors, each one consumed, each one still somehow alive inside the creature. When the vision faded, I was on my knees, tears freezing on my cheeks. The Wendigo stood over me, patient, triumphant. "Do you see now?" it asked. "This is your true legacy. Not that badge, not those medals from your war. This." I looked up at it. "I see David. He's still in there, isn't he? A part of him. Parts of everyone are in here." It touched its chest. "Even you, already. We've been connected since you first came to these waters." That gave me an idea. A terrible, desperate idea. "Will it hurt?" I asked, letting my voice break. "The final change?" "Only for a moment," the Wendigo said, reaching for me. "Then hunger is all you'll know, forever." As its claws touched my shoulder, I moved. 20 years of grief, months of military training, and one final surge of human will. I lunged forward and wrapped my hand around the copper amulet, tearing it from my neck. With my other hand, I pulled out David's knife, the one he'd carried for only a day before disappearing. The one our father had given him, made with a copper blade for skinning game. Before the Wendigo could react, I plunged the knife into my own chest. Pain exploded through me, but I didn't stop. With the last of my strength, I lurched forward and pressed the copper amulet against the Wendigo's chest, right where I'd seen a small lump in my vision, the place where David's compass had been absorbed into its body, becoming its heart. The reaction was immediate. The creature shrieked, sound like winter wind and breaking ice and human agony all mixed together. It tried to pull away, but I held on, pressing harder. "Copper in the heart," I gasped, blood filling my mouth. "Fire for the rest." With my free hand, I reached for the lantern I'd placed near the wall earlier, my last-ditch plan. I smashed it against the wooden floor. Kerosene spilled out, igniting instantly. Flames spread across the floor, climbing up the walls and the Wendigo's legs. It thrashed and screamed, a sound that shattered the windows and made my ears bleed. The fire should have been hot, but I felt cold. So cold. My blood pooled beneath me, steaming in the freezing air. The copper knife in my chest burned like ice. As my vision darkened, I saw the Wendigo's body begin to crack, black fluid leaking from the fissures in its skin. The fluid hissed and steamed where it touched the flames. David," I whispered, "I'm sorry." And for just a moment the thing's face changed. The blackness faded from its eyes, and I saw my brother looking back at me, really him this time. He looked sad but peaceful. "Thank you," he said in his real voice. Then he was gone. The tower was fully engulfed now. I couldn't move, couldn't feel my body anymore. The pain was gone. Only cold remained. As consciousness slipped away, I thought. I saw shapes in the flames, people breaking free, their spirits rising with the smoke. Hundreds of them, victims across the centuries, finally released. The last thing I saw was a boy of 16 smiling at me through the fire. Waiting. Then darkness. They found my body 3 days later, after the snowstorm finally cleared. The fire. Lookout Tower was just ashes. They couldn't explain the blackened, inhuman skeleton found beside me, its bones already crumbling to dust. The official report said I'd gotten lost in an unexpected storm and died of exposure after somehow making it to the tower. The fire was ruled an accident. No one wanted to talk about the six-toed tracks found around the tower's remains. No one mentioned how the decades-old pattern of disappearances in the Boundary Waters suddenly stopped, and no one connected it to what happened 50 years later, when a new ranger found my old journal and the copper knife preserved in the station archives. The ranger who felt an unusual hunger despite having just eaten. The ranger who started dreaming of running through the woods at night. The ranger who heard a voice on the wind that sounded like mine, warning her away from certain islands. The ranger who didn't yet understand that some hungers, once awakened, never truly die. They just wait. My name is Matthew Reynolds. I've been away from home for 15 years, but the red rocks of the Grand Canyon called me back. Not for the views that tourists come to see. I came back because of my dad. They said he fell while hiking. An accident, they told me. But I know better. My father knew these trails like the lines on his palm. He wouldn't just fall. The ranger station feels small after my years in the city. My new uniform is stiff, the badge still shiny. The other rangers welcome me, but their smiles don't reach their eyes when I mention where I want to patrol. They don't say it, but I can feel it. They think I'm like my dad, crazy, obsessed with old legends. I keep his journal in my back pocket. The leather is worn smooth from his hands, and now mine. Inside are his notes about what he called the Skinwalker's hunting grounds. The police said it was just the ramblings of a man lost in the desert without water. I know different. The drought has been bad, 2 years now. The Colorado River is lower than anyone's seen it. New caves have appeared along the canyon walls, places that were underwater before. And on those newly exposed walls are drawings, ancient ones, shapes and symbols that make my back tingle where my own scars are. I haven't told anyone about those scars yet, the strange marks I've had since I was a baby. Marks that look exactly like some of the symbols we're finding on the rocks. Yesterday, I hiked down to Havasupai territory. I needed to talk to the elders. They took one look at me and stepped back. An old woman grabbed my arm. "You should not be here," she said. "This is the boundary land." "I'm Ranger Reynolds," I said. "My father was—" "We know who you are," she cut me off. "We've never met, but we know. The changer of skins has waited for your return." My blood went cold. How did she know me, and what did she mean about the changer of skins? Last night, as the sun set behind the canyon walls, I stood at the spot where they found my dad. The report said he slipped, but the ground was flat, the trail wide. I knelt down and touched the dirt. That's when I heard it, the howl of a coyote, but wrong somehow. Too human-like. When I looked up, I saw it standing on the ridge. A coyote on its back legs, watching me. Just watching. Even from a distance, I could feel its eyes locked on mine. It didn't move like a normal animal. I reached for my flashlight, and when the beam hit the ridge, the coyote was gone. But something else caught my eye, a feather. A single black crow feather stuck in the dirt where the coyote had been standing. I picked it up, and that's when my radio crackled. Through the static, I heard whispers. Words in Havasupai, a language I barely remember from childhood. When I played the recording later in my cabin, the hair on my arms stood up. Played backward, the voice was saying a name. My nickname, one only my parents knew, Little Six Fingers. Because of my left hand, I was born with an extra finger, small but fully formed. Today, I'm going to see my grandfather. We haven't spoken since Dad's funeral. He's the only one who might know what's really happening here, what my father found, why I feel like something's been waiting for me. The locals say there's going to be a storm tonight, the first rain in months. But the way they say it sounds more like a warning than a weather report. Something's out there in the canyon. something that knew I would come back, and I think it's been watching me my whole life. Tomorrow, I head deeper into the canyon, into the places the other rangers won't go, where the tourists never see. I just hope I'm ready for what's waiting for me there. My grandfather's house sits alone at the edge of the reservation. It's small and worn like him, the wood siding turned grey from years in the sun. I park my Ranger, truck and sit for a moment, my hands tight on the wheel. It's been 15 years. The door opens before I knock. Grandfather stands there, his face lined like the canyon walls. He doesn't smile, but his eyes soften when he sees me. "You've come back," he says simply. "I knew you would." His home smells of sage and coffee. On the walls hang dream catchers and old photos. I spot one of me as a baby in my mother's arms, my tiny six-fingered hand reaching for the camera. "I need to know about Dad," I say, placing his journal on the table between us. "About what he was tracking out there." Grandfather touches the journal but doesn't open it. "Your father broke our ways. He wrote things down that should only be passed by speaking. He was trying to warn people, and now it knows we're watching." Grandfather's voice drops. "Some things grow stronger when you name them, Matthew." He makes tea, moving slowly around. His kitchen. The silence feels heavy. "Turn around," he finally says. "Take off your shirt." I do as he asks. His fingers trace the scars on my back, the ones I've had all my life. I've never seen them clearly myself, just glimpses in mirrors. "These were not mistakes," he says. "We put these marks on you when you were just days old." I turn to face him. "You did this to me to protect you." He sits heavily. "The skinwalker marked you in your mother's womb. We knew because you were born with 6 fingers. The extra digit is its sign. It had already chosen you." My stomach tightens. What is this thing? What does it want? It was once a man, a powerful medicine person who broke sacred laws, seeking to live forever. Now it is caught between worlds, needing to steal forms to exist here. Like a shapeshifter? No. Grandfather shakes his head. Shapeshifters only change themselves. The skinwalker takes. It must kill to wear a new skin, and it keeps pieces of each victim inside itself. I think of the coyote standing on 2 legs, watching me. The whispers on my radio. "Our family has watched it for centuries," he continues. "Your father, his father before him, all the way back. We are skin seers. We can spot its false forms when others can't. Dad was tracking it when he died." Grandfather nods. "Your father thought he could do more than watch. He made maps, took pictures, collected proof, and it killed him for it. The balance was broken." Grandfather opens the journal, points to a map. "These boundaries have held for generations. The skinwalker stays in its territory, and we stay in ours. But the drought has changed things. The water no longer holds it back." I stare at the map. The boundaries match exactly with the areas where hikers have gone missing. Why did it mark me? Why am I special? Because you can see it, Matthew. Like your father could, like I can. He takes my 6-fingered hand. This is both gift and curse. The extra finger lets you sense its presence. Touch where it's been. What happens if I cross paths with it? It has been waiting for you, watching you even as you grew far away from here. His eyes hold mine. It knows your fears, your memories, things even you have forgotten. That night, I sleep in my old bedroom. On the ceiling are the glow-in-the-dark stars my father put up when I was 6. I stare at them, remembering how he taught me the constellations, how safe I felt then. Outside, the wind picks up. Through the window, I see dark clouds gathering. The promised storm is coming. My phone buzzes. A text from the ranger station, another hiker missing, in the exact area my father marked in his journal. I close my eyes, but can't sleep. Every time I drift off, I hear whispers, my childhood nickname, like something is calling to me. Little 6 fingers. Little 6 fingers. In the morning, I find a crow feather on the doorstep. exactly like the one from the canyon ridge. Grandfather sees it, and his face turns ashen. "It's found you," he says. "The skinwalker knows you've come home. The search for the missing hiker starts at dawn." I join the other rangers, but I don't tell them what I know. They wouldn't believe me anyway. "Reynolds, you take the eastern trails," says Chief Ranger Wilson. He hands me a photo of the missing woman. Sarah Connors, 32, experienced hiker. Last seen at Phantom Ranch 2 days ago. I study her face. Brown hair, friendly smile. I wonder if she's still alive. I head east, but once I'm out of sight, I turn north, toward the area marked in my father's journal. The boundary lands. The canyon is quiet today. No birds singing, no lizards on the rocks. Even the insects are gone. It's like everything alive has left this place. I check my father's map again. The spots he marked form a circle. Inside it, he wrote words in Navajo that mean hunting grounds. Outside it, he drew symbols for protection. The trail narrows as I hike deeper. The air feels heavy here, like before a storm. I pass a circle of stones that wasn't on any park map. Inside it are bones, small animal bones arranged in a pattern. I kneel to look closer. The pattern seems random at first, but then I see it. The bones form a shape like the scars on my back. I take a picture with my phone, but when I check it, the screen shows just a blur where the bones should be. That's when I notice the ravens, 7 of them, flying in a perfect circle above me, not gliding on air currents like normal birds, but moving in exact formation, like they're watching me. "Hello?" I call out, feeling silly but needing to break the silence. My voice echoes off the canyon walls, and then I swear the echo comes back wrong. It says my name, Matthew. I spin around, hand on my gun. Nothing. My radio crackles. Through static, I hear a voice. "Help! Please help!" I answer back. "This is Ranger Reynolds. What's your location? Over." More static, then 6 fingers. "Come find me." My blood turns cold. No one on the radio knows about my hand. I keep it hidden in my glove. The radio goes silent. I try all channels. Nothing. I keep hiking. The sun is high now, making the rocks glow red. I reach a part of the canyon I've never seen before, a narrow slot where the river once flowed. The drought has left it dry. On the walls are the petroglyphs, ancient drawings, weathered by time, but clear enough to see they show people changing into animals, or animals becoming people. Hard to tell which. And there, higher up, is a handprint, a 6-fingered handprint pressed into the rock hundreds, maybe thousands of years ago. My hand tingles. I pull off my glove and place my palm against the print. On the wall, it fits perfectly. A shock runs through me like touching an electric fence. Images flood my mind. A deer with human eyes, a coyote walking upright, a cave that breathes. When I pull my hand away, my palm is red like a burn. And now I can feel something. A pull, like a rope tied around my waist, tugging me deeper into the canyon. I follow it. What choice do I have? The slot canyon opens into a wider space. Here the ground is bare, no plants, no insects, nothing alive, just red dirt and rocks. But the dirt is disturbed. Something's been digging. I find the first piece of equipment half buried in the sand. A high-end camera with the lens cracked. Next to it, a hiking boot. Then a water bottle with teeth marks in the plastic. Sarah Connor's camp. But no sign of Sarah. Just a trail of her things, scattered like breadcrumbs, leading toward a dark opening in the canyon wall. A cave. The opening is small, easy to miss if you're not looking for it. Above it, stuck in a crack, is a single crow feather. My radio crackles again. This time it's Sarah's voice. "Please, anyone, I'm trapped in a cave." I know I should call for backup, wait for the others, but the pull is stronger now, and what if she's alive in there? I click on my flashlight and duck into the cave. The air inside is cold, much colder than it should be on a hot day like today. My breath forms clouds. The tunnel slopes down, then opens into a larger chamber. My flashlight beam catches something on the walls. At first, I think it's more petroglyphs, but as I get closer, I see their handprints. Dozens of them, six-fingered handprints. Some large, some small, some old and faded, others that look fresh. I touch one. It's still damp. "Hello?" I call. "Sarah?" A shuffling sound from deeper in the cave, something moving in the dark beyond my light. I step forward, and my foot hits something soft. I point my flashlight down. It's a skin, like a snake might shed, but larger, human-shaped but wrong somehow. The proportions are off, the fingers too long, and there are 6 of them. The radio at my hip bursts to life, so loud I jump. "Little 6 fingers," says my father's voice. "I've been waiting for you." My father's voice on the radio freezes me in place. It can't be him. He's been dead for over a year. "Dad," I whisper, knowing it's not possible. The radio hisses with static. Then, "Come deeper, son. I have so much to show you." I should run. Every instinct screams to get out of this cave, but I keep moving forward, drawn by that same pull I felt outside. The beam of my flashlight bounces off the cave walls, making the handprints seem to move. The tunnel narrows, then opens into another chamber. This one is larger, with a ceiling so high my light can't reach it. The air feels strange here, thick and hard to breathe, like it's filled with something I can't see. In the center of the chamber is a pile of things. I step closer, my light revealing clothes, backpacks, cameras, items from hikers who never made it home, arranged in a neat circle like someone's collection, and at the edge of my light, something moves. "Sarah," I call, hoping against hope. "Sarah Connors?" A figure steps into the edge of my light. It looks like a woman, like Sarah from the photo, but something's not right. Her movements are jerky like a puppet on strings, and her eyes are all wrong. "Help me," she says, her voice matching the one from the radio. "Please help me, Ranger." I take a step back. "What happened to you?" She tilts her head at an angle no human neck should bend. "I got lost. Then I found something wonderful." She smiles, but her face doesn't fold right around the expression. "It found me." "What found you?" "The changer of skins." She takes a step toward me. "It's so hungry, Matthew. It's been waiting so long." I back away, drawing my gun, even though I know it won't help. "Stay back." She laughs, a sound that turns into something like a growl. "Your father said the same thing, right before the end. But he came back. We all come back in a way." My back hits the cave wall. The figure that looks like Sarah is still coming, and now I see what's wrong. Her skin doesn't fit right. It hangs loose in places, tight in others, like she's wearing a costume that's the wrong size. "What are you?" I ask, though I already know. "I am the Skinwalker." Her voice changes, becomes deeper, older. "I am the wearer of flesh, the collector of forms." She stretches out her arms, and they grow longer, the fingers extending into claws. "And you are mine, little 6 fingers. You've always been mine." I fire my gun. The sound is deafening in the cave. The bullet hits her chest, but she doesn't flinch. Instead, the hole it makes starts to close, the edges of the wound crawling together like something alive. "Your weapons can't hurt me," she says. "Not like this." She steps fully into my light, and I see her clearly now. Her face is melting, the features shifting and flowing like wax. Underneath is something else, something with too many eyes. I run, back through the tunnel, heart pounding so hard it hurts. Behind me I hear her laughing. No, not her. It. I burst out of the cave into the sunlight. The bright light blinds me for a second, and I stumble, falling to my knees. When my vision clears, I see I'm not alone. Standing in front of me is a deer, a big buck with antlers that spread wide, but something's wrong with it too. Its legs are bent backward, and its face looks partly human. I recognize the features with horror. They belong to a hiker who went missing last week. The Dear thing looks at me with eyes that know me. Then it turns and bounds away, its movements all wrong for a deer. I scramble to my feet and run back to the trail, not stopping until I reach my truck. Inside, I lock the doors and try to calm my breathing. My hands shake as I pull out my father's journal. The pages near the back, the ones I haven't read yet, are filled with notes about the skinwalker's weaknesses. Can't cross running water that's been blessed, I read aloud. Vulnerable during transformation. Silver can wound but not kill. I flip through more pages and find a formula for a poison. My father had collected the ingredients, rare plants that grow only near the canyon's water sources, plants now endangered by the drought. I start the truck and head back to my grandfather's house. He needs to know what I've seen, what I'm up against. As I drive, the sky darkens with storm clouds. The radio weather report says the drought might finally break tonight. Heavy rain expected. At my grandfather's house, I find him sitting on the porch, waiting for me. Like he knew I would come running back. You saw it, he says simply. I nod, my throat tight. Then you know why your father died. Why our family has watched the boundaries for generations. It can look like anyone, I say. It had Sarah's face, but wrong. And I saw a deer with human features, grandfather nods. It can take many forms, split itself into pieces. The crow, the coyote, the snake, the wolf, all are its aspects. How do I kill it? You don't. He gets up slowly, his old joints creaking. You can only contain it, and even that is temporary. He leads me inside and opens an old wooden chest I've never seen before. From it, he takes a silver knife with symbols carved into the blade. Your father wounded it with this, he says, handing it to me. That's why it killed him. It can be hurt when it's changing forms. The poison in Dad's journal. I have some, he says. Not much. The plants are nearly gone now. Thunder rolls across the sky. The first drops of rain hit the roof. The storm comes at the right time, grandfather says. Blessed water is its weakness. It cannot cross running water that carries the old prayers. He takes my 6-fingered hand and presses something into it. A small leather pouch. This contains the poison. You will know how to use it. Your hand will feel it. And he's right. My extra finger tingles when I touch the pouch, like it's responding to something inside. The skinwalker has been collecting your family for generations, grandfather says. It wants you most of all, because you carry the strongest bloodline. The 6th finger marks you as special. Outside, the rain falls harder. Lightning flashes, illuminating the room for a second. Tonight it will hunt, grandfather says. The rain drives it from its cave. It must feed before returning to darkness. I grip the silver knife tighter. Then I'll be waiting. As night falls, the storm grows stronger. The perfect time to hunt a creature that has been hunting my family for generations. Rain pounds the canyon like angry fists. Water rushes down the dry washes, turning dust to mud in minutes. The storm has come, just as grandfather said it would. I drive as close as I can get to the cave, but flash flood warnings mean I have to leave my truck a mile out. The rest of the way is on foot, through mud and rushing water. The silver knife is strapped to my belt. The pouch of poison hangs around my neck. In my pocket is a small bottle of water that grandfather blessed with ancient prayers. Not much to fight a creature that survived for centuries, but it's all I have. Lightning cracks overhead, lighting up the canyon walls. For a split second, I see something moving along the ridge, something big that doesn't move like a normal animal. Then darkness swallows it again. The path to the cave is dangerous now. Water rushes through the slot canyon, carving new channels in the soft sandstone. But I push on, feeling that same pull from before, stronger now. I'm close to the cave when I hear the scream. Human, terrified, coming from up ahead. I run toward it, splashing through puddles, sliding in mud. The cave entrance is half flooded. Water pours into it like a drain. The crow feather that marked it is gone, washed away by rain. Another scream echoes from inside. I wade into the water at the entrance. It's cold, numbing my legs as I push forward. The tunnel slopes down sharply now, the water rushing faster. I have to cling to the walls to keep from being swept away. My flashlight shows the water is rising fast. If I don't hurry, the whole cave system will flood. The tunnel opens into the chamber I saw before, but it's changed. Water covers the floor, already knee-deep and rising. The collection of hikers' belongings floats like sad islands, and there, huddled on a rock shelf above the water, is a woman. The real Sarah Connors, not the thing that wore her face. She's alive, but barely conscious. Sarah, I call, wading toward her. I'm Ranger Reynolds. I'm going to get you out of here. Her eyes flutter open. They're normal, human eyes filled with fear. There's something in here, she whispers, something terrible. I know. Can you walk? She shakes her head. My leg's broken. It did something. To me, tried to be me. I lift her as gently as I can. She's light, too light, like she hasn't eaten in days. As I turn to leave, water swirling around my thighs now, I hear a sound from deeper in the cave, a wet, slithering sound. We need to hurry, I tell Sarah, but it's too late. The water in front of us bulges upward, forming a shape. At first, I think it's just the current, but then it keeps rising, taking form. A human-like figure made of water and something dark swirling inside it. Little 6 fingers, it says with my father's voice, water spraying from its mouth. Bringing me another gift? Let us pass, I say, shifting Sarah's weight to free my right hand. My left, the 6-fingered one, holds her tight. The water figure laughs. The rain doesn't stop me, boy. It frees me, lets me move faster. The figure steps closer, its watery feet making no splash. As it moves, it solidifies, becoming more flesh than water, becoming my father. Dad. I can't help but whisper. The thing wearing my father's face smiles, but the expression is all wrong. Part of him is in here. It taps its chest. His memories, his voice, even pieces of his soul, they never really leave me. You killed him. I saved him. The thing spreads its arms. Like I've saved so many. They live forever inside me. Sarah whimpers against my shoulder. I need to get her out, but the only exit is behind this thing. What do you want from me? I ask, trying to buy time. My hand inches toward the knife at my belt. The same thing I've wanted since before you were born. It takes another step closer. Its movements are smoother now, more human. You're special, Matthew. Your bloodline is pure. 6 generations of skin seers, all leading to you. My extra, a finger, a sign of my mark. It nods. Your ancestors made a deal with me long ago, protection for their people in exchange for a tribute. 1 child from each generation to join me, to add their strength to mine. Lightning flashes outside, the thunder following immediately. The storm is right overhead now, but your father tried to break the deal. He thought he could destroy me. The thing's face twists with anger. He forgot that I made your family what they are. The water keeps rising. It's at my waist now, making it hard to hold on to Sarah. If I give myself to you, I say slowly, will you let her go? Let the others go? Matthew, no, Sarah whispers. The skinwalker tilts its head, considering. The others are already part of me, but this one, it looks at Sarah, this one I could release for you. I know it's lying. I can see it in the eyes that aren't my father's eyes, no matter how much they look like his. I reach for the blessed, water in my pocket. She goes free first, I say. Then we talk. The skinwalker smiles. Of course. It moves to the side, opening a path to the tunnel. I carry Sarah toward it. Every sense alert for a trap. We're almost there when something grabs my ankle from beneath the water. I stumble, nearly dropping Sarah. From under the surface emerges another figure, the deer man I saw outside, its antlers dripping with cave water. More shapes rise from the water around us. A woman with snake scales covering half her face. A child with coyote eyes. The missing hikers, all changed, all wrong. My family, says the skinwalker from behind me. Parts of me that can move alone for short times. I pull my ankle free and lunge for the tunnel, but it's blocked now by more forms. We're surrounded. Join us willingly, the skinwalker says, and it won't hurt. Fight, and I'll take you anyway. Piece by piece. Sarah clutches my shirt. The water, she whispers. It doesn't like the rain. She's right. I notice now that the changed people avoid the spots where rain falls directly from a crack in the ceiling. The blessed water. I set Sarah on a rock ledge and pull out the silver knife. With my other hand, I grab the pouch of poison. You can't fight all of us, the skinwalker laughs. I don't need to beat all of you, I say. Just you. I throw the bottle of blessed water at it. The glass shatters against its chest. The water sizzles on contact, and the skinwalker screams, a sound no human throat could make. It stumbles backward, its form wavering between my father and something else. Something with too many limbs and eyes. The other creatures surge toward me. I slash with the knife, catching the deer man across its chest. Black ichor spills from the wound instead of blood. The knife burns where the liquid touches it. Sarah screams. The snake woman has her by the leg. I kick it away and pull Sarah behind me. The water is chest high now. The current grows stronger as more rain pours in. Soon the cave will be completely flooded. The skinwalker recovers, its form settling again into my father's shape. Bad choice, son, it growls. It lunges at me. I dodge, but slip in the rising water. I go under for a second, swallowing cave water that tastes like rot. When I surface, the skinwalker has me by the throat. Its fingers are too long, the nails hardening into claws that pierce my skin. I'll wear you better than I wore your father. It hisses, its face inches from mine. I can't breathe. Black spots dance in my vision. With my last strength, I bring up the silver knife and drive it into the skinwalker's side. It screams and releases me. I fall back into the water, gasping for air. The knife stays buried in its ribs, the handle glowing faintly in the dim light. The skinwalker claws at the knife, but can't pull it out. Where the silver touches, its flesh bubbles and smokes. The poison, Sarah calls from behind me. Use the poison. My hand goes to the pouch at my neck. My 6-fingered hand tingles painfully as I touch it. The skinwalker sees what I'm doing and lunges again, but slower now, wounded. Your grandfather's tricks won't save you. I open the pouch and throw the contents, a powder made from the rare canyon plants, into the water between us. At first, nothing happens. Then, the water begins to glow faintly blue, where the powder dissolves. The glow spreads in a circle. The effect on the skinwalker and its aspects is immediate. They shriek and try to back away, but the current carries the poisoned water everywhere. Wherever it touches them, their borrowed forms begin to melt. Get to the tunnel, I tell Sarah, helping her off the ledge. Follow it up. The rain will guide you out. What about you? I look at the skinwalker, now writhing in the glowing water. I know this won't kill it. The poison is temporary. The cave will flood, then drain when the storm passes, and it will return to its hunt. Unless I have to finish this, I say. Go, please. She hesitates, then starts toward the tunnel, using the wall for support despite her broken leg. I wade toward the skinwalker. It's changing rapidly now, unable to hold any shape. Parts of it look like my father, parts like animals, parts like nothing I've ever seen before. At its core is something ancient and dark, pulsing like a heart. You can't destroy me, it gurgles, through a mouth that keeps changing shape. I am eternal. Maybe, I say. But I can trap you. I pull out the detonator from my pocket. Before coming, I set charges at the cave entrance, enough to bring down tons of rock. The skinwalker's many. Eyes widen. You'll die too. I think of my father's notes, the 6th finger, the bloodline connection. I know. Water rushes around us, almost at the ceiling now. The blessed rain mixes with the cave water, weakening the skinwalker, but not destroying it. Nothing can destroy it completely, but I can bury it. seal it away until the next drought, maybe longer, and my blood, the blood it's been hunting for generations, will be part of the seal. This ends now, I say, and press the button. The explosion is muffled by the water, but I feel the shock wave. Dust and small rocks shower down, then larger ones. The cave entrance collapses with a roar louder than thunder. Water rushes out through. New cracks drawn by gravity, but not fast enough. The main chamber is sealing off, becoming an underwater tomb. The skinwalker screams with all its voices at once. It lunges for me one last time, but the current pushes us apart. As the water rises over my head, my last thought is of Sarah. I hope she made it out in time. I hope the rangers find her, and I hope she tells them to leave this place alone. The water closes over me. Through it, distorted and fading, I see the canyon walls collapsing, sealing us in. The skinwalker and me, together in darkness. They found Sarah Connors 3 days later, half a mile downstream from the cave. She told them about the ranger who saved her, about the cave collapse during the flash flood, about the thing that wasn't human. No one found my body. The cave entrance was gone, buried under tons of rock. The official report listed me as missing, presumed dead. Another victim of the canyon's unpredictable dangers. Grandfather knew better. He felt it when I died. The breaking of the bloodline, the end of the cycle. He holds a ceremony each year on the day of the flood, blessing the water that flows through that part of the canyon. Sometimes, park visitors report strange sightings in that area. A ranger with a 6-fingered hand walking the trails at sunset. A handprint appearing on wet rocks after it rains, and sometimes during droughts when the water runs low, hikers say they hear whispers from cracks in the stone. Voices calling for help. The canyon keeps its secrets, and I keep my watch, not alive, not dead, but somewhere in between, like the thing I contained. The boundary holds, for now. But droughts come and go. Water rises and falls, and nothing stays buried forever. My name is Victor Lamar, and I've come back to a place I swore I'd never return to. 15 years is a long time to run from your past, but the nightmares followed me anyway. The road to Okefenokee Swamp hasn't changed much. Same twisted oak trees, draped in Spanish moss. Same heavy air that sticks to your skin. Same smell of mud and rotting plants that somehow feels like home, even when you hate it. I gripped the steering wheel tighter as I passed the faded wooden sign welcoming visitors to the park. My transfer papers sat on the passenger seat. Ranger Victor Lamar, reporting for duty. What a joke. I wasn't here to protect the swamp. I was here because of Tommy. Tommy was my little brother. He was 10 when the swamp took him. I was 16 and supposed to be watching him. They never found his body, just his life jacket washed, up on a muddy bank, torn in 3 places. The official report said alligator attack. I've spent 15 years knowing that was a lie. We weren't supposed to be in that part of the swamp. It was marked off limits, but that didn't stop us kids from daring each other to go deeper and deeper. Tommy wanted to prove he was brave. I wanted to show off. Neither of us knew what was waiting in those dark waters. "You'll do fine here, Lamar," said Ranger Miller, handing me the keys to my cabin. "Not many want this post. Too remote for most folks." I nodded, not telling him I requested it specifically. Not telling him about the dreams that got worse after my therapist suggested I face my fears. Dreams of scaled hands pulling Tommy under. Dreams where I hear his scream cut short by murky water filling his lungs. The cabin was small but clean. 1 bedroom, a kitchen and a porch that faced the water. I put my bag down and stared out at the cypress trees rising from the black water. The sun was starting to set, painting everything in gold and red. In a few hours, it would be fully dark. Unpacked my few belongings, setting a picture of Tommy and me on the nightstand. His gap-toothed smile frozen in time. The picture was taken 3 days before he disappeared. We were fishing off the dock, both of us sunburned and happy. before everything changed. Night fell quickly in the swamp. I sat on the porch with a cup of coffee, listening to the chorus of frogs and insects that always filled the darkness. Except tonight, something was wrong. The noise suddenly stopped, like someone had flipped a switch. Complete silence fell over the water. My coffee mug slipped from my hand, shattering on the wooden boards. It was the same silence that had fallen 15 years ago, right before Tommy disappeared. An unnatural quiet that made your skin crawl. Just a coincidence, I whispered to myself, but I was already on my feet, heart pounding against my ribs. I knew what the locals would say if I mentioned it. They'd look at me the way they used to look at my family. The Lamars had been respected swamp guides for generations until my grandfather's time. Then, without explanation, they refused to enter certain parts of the swamp. Cowards, the people, called them. But I'd seen the fear in my grandfather's eyes whenever anyone mentioned the deep water in the southern reaches. The beam of my flashlight cut through the darkness, reflecting off the still water. Nothing moved, no ripples, no signs of life, just the stars above, perfectly mirrored in the black surface below. Then I saw it. A ripple in the water's reflection that didn't match the sky above. Like something moving just beneath the surface, disturbing only the reflection of stars. I swung my flashlight toward it, but there was nothing there. Just still, dark water that somehow felt like it was watching me back. I backed up slowly into my cabin and locked the door, knowing how crazy that would sound to anyone else. Locking a door against water, against reflections that moved wrong, against memories. But as I lay in bed that night, unable to sleep, I could have sworn I heard a small voice carried on the wind. A child's voice, calling my name from somewhere out in the swamp, calling me to come find him, and I knew then that coming back was either the best decision I'd ever made or the worst mistake of my life. Either way, the swamp was waiting for me, just like it had been waiting for 15 years. Morning came with a heavy fog hanging over the swamp. I hadn't slept much. Every creak of the cabin had me sitting up, listening for that voice again, but it never came back. My first day as a ranger was simple enough. Check the trails, make sure signs were in place, talk to the few brave tourists who ventured this far into the park. Normal work that kept my mind busy, at least until sunset. After my shift, I drove to my parents' old house. They'd moved away years ago, unable to stay after Tommy disappeared. But the house still belonged to our family, sitting empty at the edge of the swamp. The key was hard to turn in the rusty lock. Inside, everything was covered in dust and spiderwebs. The furniture was still there, draped in old sheets like ghosts. I moved through the rooms slowly, memories hitting me with each step. In the attic, I found what I was really looking for. A stack of old boxes marked Dad's Things. My grandfather had died before I was born, but my dad never talked about him much. All I knew was that he'd been the one to stop the family's swamp guide business. The first box had old clothes and fishing gear. The second had photo albums, but the third box made my hands shake. At the bottom, wrapped in oilcloth, was a stack of leather-bound journals. My grandfather's handwriting filled every page. I took them back to my cabin, not wanting to stay in that empty house after dark. Under the yellow light of my porch lamp, I opened the first journal. March 15, 1924, I read aloud to the chorus of frogs and crickets. The water is lower than I've ever seen it. The drought has exposed parts of the swamp that should stay hidden. Today I saw what the Creek people call the scaled one who walks. I won't write more here, in case someone finds this. But I have made my decision. No Lamar will guide in the southern waters again. I flipped through the pages faster now. Most entries were normal. Weather reports, fishing notes, family events. But every few pages there were mentions of it, or the thing in the water, and drawings, detailed sketches of tracks unlike anything I'd seen before. 3-toed prints with what looked like the heel facing backward. July 8, 1924, another entry read. The Creek medicine woman, old Martha's grandmother, came to see me today. She says every 70 years when the waters run low, it gets hungry. Says my great-grandfather made a deal with it during the last big drought. Water for the town in exchange for... I can't write it. I won't be part of this. But she says the water spirit knows our blood now. A cold feeling spread through my stomach. 70 years from 1924 would be 1994. The year Tommy disappeared. I stayed up all night reading, piecing together what my grandfather knew. The creature he described lived in underwater caves, hunting at night. It could stay underwater for hours, but needed to come onto land sometimes too. The old creek people left offerings for it, usually animals, but sometimes. The journal mentioned caves that could only be reached during extreme drought, when the water level dropped enough. Caves that matched the area where Tommy and I had been exploring that day. The next morning, I called in sick and drove to the local library. The old newspaper archives were kept in a back room, dusty and forgotten. I spent hours scrolling through, microfilm, looking at every missing person report from the area. There was a pattern. Every few years, people would vanish in the swamp, always written off as accidents, always in the same area. And every 70 years, there was a spike, 1854, 1924, and 1994. Drought years. As I was leaving, the librarian, an old woman with kind eyes, touched my arm. "You're Joseph Lamar's grandson, aren't you?" she asked. "You have his look." I nodded. "Be careful in those southern waters," she said quietly. "Some things are better left alone." "What do you mean?" I asked. She looked around, then leaned closer. "There's been lights in the swamp at night. Folks call it swamp lightning or corpse fire, beautiful colors dancing over the water. Some fools think it leads to Spanish treasure. Those who follow it don't come back." A chill ran up my spine. "When did you last see these lights?" 3 nights ago, she said. "New moon time, always strongest then." The same night I arrived, the night of the silence. That afternoon, I packed my gear and took a park boat out into the swamp. I told myself I was just doing my job, checking the more remote areas, but I knew where I was heading, the place marked in my grandfather's journal, the place where Tommy disappeared. As I steered through the narrow water paths between cypress trees, I saw something that made me cut the engine, a small fishing boat, abandoned, sitting against a fallen tree. I pulled alongside it. Deep gouges marked the wooden sides. 3 parallel lines like massive claws had ripped through it. The owner's gear was scattered across the seats. Tackle, box, fishing rod, a half-eaten sandwich now covered in ants and something else. Caught in the splintered wood was a metal dog tag. I pried it free and read the name, Wilson Mark A. Below it was his service number and blood type. I remembered the notice on the station bulletin board. Mark Wilson, Army veteran, reported missing 2 weeks ago. His car found at the boat launch. Everyone assumed he'd gotten lost in the swamp as I put the tag in my pocket. I noticed something on the muddy bank. Tracks leading from the water. 3-toed prints with the heel facing backward, exactly like the drawings in my grandfather's journal. I followed them, feeling like my heart might pound right out of my chest. They led to a small clearing and then disappeared, as if whatever made them had suddenly vanished or returned to the water. The sun was getting low. I knew I should head, back before dark. But I had to see one more place first, the small Cypress island where Tommy's life jacket was found. As I approached it, the swamp went silent again. No frogs, no insects, nothing but the sound of water lapping against my boat, and there, half hidden in the mud at the island's edge, was something white. I reached down and pulled it free. A piece of plastic, badly weathered. When I wiped away the muck, I could still make out the logo of a local hunting club, the same club whose members had gone missing last month. Their last radio transmission had been strange. The police report said they were probably drunk, talking nonsense about a lizard man watching from the water. The same words Tommy had screamed. Before the splash, words I'd tried to forget for 15 years, I looked up at the darkening sky. The new moon would rise soon, invisible in the night. According to my grandfather's journal, that's when it hunted. As if on cue, my radio crackled with static. Through the white noise, I heard something that made my blood freeze. A garbled voice, speaking backward, mixed with a strange hissing sound. I needed to get back to shore, fast. But as I turned the boat around, I saw something in the water. Just beneath the surface, a faint glow moving against the current, moving with purpose, moving toward me. I jerked the motor to life and sped away from the glowing light under the water. My heart was racing so fast I could barely breathe. The boat bounced over the dark water as I headed straight for shore, not looking back. Safe in my cabin that night, I pulled out the one thing I'd never shown anyone, a small metal locket I'd kept since the day Tommy disappeared. Inside wasn't a picture. It was a scale, about the size of a quarter, thin and slightly curved. In the daylight, it looked grey-green, like it might have come from a big fish, but in moonlight it gave off a faint blue glow. I found it in Tommy's shoe, left behind on the shore. I never told the police or my parents. Something made me keep its secret all these years. Now looking at it next to my grandfather's drawings, things were starting to make horrible sense. The scale matched his descriptions exactly. The next morning, I called an old friend from college who now worked as a biologist at the University of Georgia. "Mike," I said when he answered, "have there been any reports of unusual wildlife in the Okefenokee recently?" He laughed. "You mean besides the 12-foot gators?" "Actually, we've had some weird stuff. Mass fish die-offs in certain spots. The fish weren't oxygen deprived like you'd expect. They were, well, drained of blood." A chill ran through me. "Where exactly were these die-offs?" "Southern section mostly. We're heading out there next week to test the water." "Why? You seeing something strange out there, Vic?" I almost told him everything. Instead, I just said, "Maybe. Can you send me the exact locations?" That afternoon, I marked the die-off spots on my grandfather's old map. They formed a pattern around the underwater caves he'd written about, the same area where the lights had been seen. I decided to check it out in daylight. It was safer that way. Or so I thought. The swamp was peaceful in the morning sun. Birds called to each other from the cypress trees. Turtles sunned themselves on logs. It was hard to believe there was anything dangerous here besides alligators. I reached the first die-off location and took water samples like Mike had shown me years ago. The water looked normal, but my handheld meter showed something odd, slightly higher radiation levels than there should be. That made no sense, unless I remembered something from a history class. During the 1940s, lots of remote areas were used for secret government testing. The Manhattan Project needed places, away from people. As I moved to the next location, I spotted something on a fallen tree, half submerged in the water. A dead alligator, about 9 feet long. Alligators don't have natural predators once they're full grown. Nothing hunts them, yet this one had been attacked. Huge chunks were missing from its tail and belly. The wounds didn't look like bites, more like something had slashed it. The cuts matched the marks on the abandoned boat I'd found earlier. 3 parallel slashes. And most disturbing of all, the wounds looked exactly like the tears in Tommy's life jacket from 15 years ago. I took pictures with my phone and was about to leave when something caught my eye. A small patch of mud near the water's edge showed those same strange tracks. 3 toes, backward heel. But these were fresh, made sometime last night. I followed them along the bank. They went about 20 yards and then stopped at the water's edge. Whatever made them had gone back into the swamp. That's when I noticed a tree nearby with something stuck to its bark. A patch of skin about the size of my hand, translucent and papery. It looked like a snake's shed skin, but much thicker. When I carefully peeled it off, I saw tiny bumps arranged in patterns like scales. I put it in a plastic bag, trying to ignore how closely it resembled the scale in my locket. Back at my cabin, I laid out everything I'd found: the dog tag, the hunting club badge, the skin sample, my water readings. I was building a case, but for what? Who would believe me if I started talking about some creature in the swamp? My radio crackled to life, making me jump. "Lamar, you there?" It was Miller back at headquarters. "I'm here," I answered. "Got a new ranger joining you tomorrow. Name's Diane Chen. She'll be helping patrol the southern section." My stomach tightened. The southern section? Has there been trouble out there? A pause. Nothing specific, just had some complaints about trespassers, probably poachers. I didn't believe him. Something else was going on. After dinner, I tried playing the garbled radio transmission I'd heard through my computer's audio program. When I reversed it, what I heard made the hair on my neck stand up. "It keeps us in the dark below." The voice was distant, distorted, but I recognized it instantly. It was Tommy's voice, exactly as it had sounded when he was 10 years old. I played it again, trying to convince myself it was a trick or my imagination, but there was no doubt. Somehow, my brother's voice had come through that radio. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about what the librarian had said about the lights, about my grandfather's warnings, about the creature that only needed to surface during the new moon. The new moon was tomorrow night. I went to the window and looked out at the dark water. Far across the swamp, I saw them. Faint, glowing lights dancing over the surface. Blue-green dots moving in patterns. As I watched, they formed a shape that stopped my breath. They made the exact pattern of 3 connected stars that Tommy had as a birthmark on his arm. In that moment, I knew 2 things for certain. First, whatever took my brother wasn't just some animal, it was intelligent. And second, Tommy wasn't dead. Not exactly. I grabbed my gear and headed for the door. I couldn't wait until morning. The lights were calling me out to the water, just like they had called those missing hunters, just like they had probably called Mark Wilson, just like they had called Tommy all those years ago. But this time, I was ready. I had my grandfather's maps. I knew where the caves were, and I had something else, a powerful battery and electric cables. If my grandfather was right about the creature being vulnerable to electricity, I might have a chance. As I pushed my boat away from the dock, I heard my radio crackle again. Through the static came that same backward voice, but this time I didn't need to reverse it to understand. It was calling my name, over and over, mixed with that inhuman hissing. The lights moved across the water, leading me deeper into the swamp, into the place where the dead go, into the place where my brother was waiting. The lights led me through narrow water paths I'd never seen before. My boat's motor hummed quietly as I followed, my flashlight beam cutting through the mist that had settled over the water. I checked my grandfather's map. I was in the deepest part of the swamp now, where few people ever went. Up ahead was a small island with a cluster of ancient cypress trees. The map showed a cave entrance nearby, only accessible when the water was low. As I neared the island, the lights disappeared. The silence returned, that unnatural quiet that made my skin crawl. I cut the motor and drifted the last few yards, using a paddle to guide the boat to shore. My feet sank into the soft mud as I pulled the boat up. The island was small, maybe 50 feet across. In the center, between the massive trees, I noticed something strange. Stones arranged in a circle, with sticks and bones placed in patterns. It looked like some kind of marker or sign. Among the bones, something metallic caught my eye. I knelt down and picked it up. A military ID badge so old the name had worn off. But the date was still visible, 1943, the time of the Manhattan Project, when the government was testing in remote areas. The pieces were starting to fit together. Whatever was in these waters had been here a long time, but something changed. In the 1940s, something made it different, more aggressive, more intelligent. At the water's edge, I found an underwater slope leading down. According to the map, the cave entrance should be just below. I'd brought diving gear, mask, air tank, waterproof flashlight. I wasn't planning to go far, just enough to see what was there. As I prepared to enter the water, I heard splashing to my left. I swung my light toward the sound. Nothing. Then more splashing, this time behind me. Something was circling the island. "Who's there?" I called out, trying to keep my voice steady. No answer, just more splashing, moving faster now. I had to make a choice. Go back to my boat and leave, or continue with my plan. The thought of Tommy's voice on the radio made the decision for me. I couldn't leave without knowing. I put on my diving mask and slipped into the black water, switching on my waterproof flashlight. The beam barely penetrated a few feet ahead in the murky water. I followed the slope down, keeping one hand on the muddy bottom to guide me. About 15 feet down, the slope leveled out and I saw it, a dark opening in the rocky bank. The cave entrance. It was bigger than I expected, easily large enough for a person to swim through. I hesitated at the entrance, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. Part of me wanted to turn back, but I'd come too far to stop. Now I swam into the darkness, my light showing a tunnel that curved downward. The water was clearer here, filtered through rocks. I could see about 10 feet ahead now. The tunnel widened into a small chamber. My light beam showed the water's surface. About 2 feet above me, I swam up and broke through, finding a pocket of air. I pulled myself onto a rocky ledge and took off my mask, shining my light around. What I saw made my blood run cold. The cave walls were lined with bones, human bones. Some old and yellow, others frighteningly white and new. Skulls stared at me from rock crevices. Ribs curved out of the mud like strange plants. But it wasn't just bones. Modern items were arranged in bizarre patterns. Watches, phones, car keys, wallets, things that belonged to the missing people. And among them, I spotted a child's shoe. Tommy's shoe. The match to the one we'd found on shore 15 years ago. I forced myself to keep moving, following a tunnel that led deeper into the cave system. The air was damp and smelled like rotting vegetation and something else, a musky, reptilian scent. The tunnel opened into a larger chamber with a pool of water in the center. Around the edges were strange sack-like objects attached to the walls. They were translucent, glowing slightly in the beam of my flashlight. Inside each one was a shape, some small and curled, others larger and more developed. With horror, I realized what I was looking at, eggs or something like eggs. Inside were growing things, some with scales, others with disturbingly human features. A splash behind me made me spin around. Something had entered the water in the outer chamber. I ducked behind a rock formation, turning off my light. In the darkness, I heard something moving through the water, then pulling itself onto the rocky shore of the inner chamber. I couldn't help myself. I had to see. I peeked around the rock, my eyes now adjusted enough to make out shapes in the dark. A tall figure stood by the pool. At first, I thought it was a man. Then it moved, and I saw its true form in the dim light coming from the egg sacs. It stood about 7 feet tall on 2 legs. Its body was covered in scales that gave off a faint bluish glow. A ridge of spines ran down its back, and its hands ended in long, webbed claws. But its face, its face was the worst part. One side was reptilian, with a yellow eye and scaled skin. But the other side was partially human, distorted and twisted, but recognizably human. And with a shock that nearly made me cry out, I realized why it looked familiar. That half-human face had features that resembled Tommy. The creature moved toward the egg sacs, checking each one. It made a series of clicking and hissing sounds that somehow seemed like language. Then it turned, as if sensing something, and looked directly toward my hiding place. I froze, not daring to breathe. Its yellow eyes narrowed. It took a step toward me, then stopped as a strange sound echoed through the cave. A voice. a human voice calling from somewhere deeper in the cave system. "Victor!" The voice was distorted, barely human, but I knew. It instantly Tommy. The creature's head jerked toward the sound. It made an angry hissing noise and moved quickly down another tunnel away from me. When I was sure it was gone, I turned my light back on low and followed, staying far behind. The tunnel sloped upward, eventually opening into a final chamber larger than all the others. This one was mostly out of water, with strange rock formations creating a cathedral-like space. Stalactites hung from the ceiling, dripping water that echoed throughout the chamber. But what caught my attention was in the center, a pool of glowing blue liquid surrounded by more of those translucent sacs. These were larger than the others, and inside one of them, I had to clamp my hand over my mouth to stop from screaming. Inside, the largest sac was a human form. The lower half had already transformed into something scaled and inhuman, but the upper body and face were still recognizable, though altered. It was Tommy, my brother, not dead, but changed. Changing still. His eyes were closed, as if sleeping. Tubes or roots or something in between connected him to the sack. The creature stood over him, making those clicking, hissing sounds again. Then Tommy's eyes opened. They were different now, yellow, with vertical pupils, but there was recognition. In them, he saw me hiding in the shadows. His mouth moved, forming words with difficulty. "Run, Vic," he managed to say. "Not just one whole colony." The creature whipped around, finally spotting me. It let out a bone-chilling screech that shook loose rocks from the ceiling. I didn't wait. I ran, back through the tunnels, splashing through water, gasping for breath. Behind me, I could hear it coming, moving faster than anything that size should be able to move. I reached the first chamber and dove into the water, swimming frantically for the entrance. In the darkness, I felt something brush past my leg. Long, cold fingers grabbed at my ankle, but I kicked free. The cave entrance appeared ahead, a slightly lighter patch in the black water. I swam with everything I had, my lungs burning for air. Something grabbed me again, this time wrapping around my calf. I felt a sharp pain as claws dug into my flesh. I kicked wildly, connecting with something solid. The grip loosened just enough for me to pull free. I burst out of the cave into open water and swam upward, breaking the surface with a desperate gasp. My boat was just a few yards away. I pulled myself into it and started the motor with shaking hands. As the boat roared to life, I looked back at the water. Yellow eyes watched me from just below the surface. Then they were gone, disappearing into the depths. I sped away, my mind racing faster than the boat. Tommy was alive, sort of, and he wasn't alone down there. A colony, he'd said. How many people had been taken over the years? How many had been transformed into those things? And most terrifying of all, what did they want? Back at my cabin, I examined the bite on my leg. 3 puncture marks that burned like fire. I cleaned and bandaged them, but already the skin around the wound looked different. Slightly discolored, with a faint pattern forming that looked disturbingly like scales. Whatever was happening to Tommy was happening to me now. The creature's bite had infected me somehow. I had to act fast, before I changed too much, before I lost myself to whatever lived in the depths below. Morning came, but I didn't sleep. I couldn't. The wound on my leg had spread during the night. Small patches of skin between my toes had turned greenish and rough. When I touched them, they felt like the scale in my locket. I was changing, just like Tommy had changed. But I still had time. I called in sick again, then drove to the nearest hardware store. I bought everything I needed: batteries, cables, metal rods, waterproof tape. If my grandfather was right about electricity being the creature's weakness, I was going to use that. When I got back to my cabin, there was a truck parked outside. A woman in a ranger uniform was standing on my porch. Diane Chen, the new ranger. Miller had mentioned Lamar. she asked as I got out of my car. I was supposed to meet you this morning. Your boss sent me to check on you. I tried to act normal, even though my leg was on fire and I could feel the changes spreading. Sorry, I'm not feeling well. Stomach bug, I think. She didn't look convinced. Miller says you've been asking a lot of questions about the southern section, about the missing people. Something in her tone made me wary. Just doing my job. New to the area, trying to learn. Diane stepped closer, lowering her voice. I don't work for the Park Service, Lamar. I'm with the EPA. We've been monitoring radiation levels in this swamp for years. My heart skipped. The government testing. In the 40s, she nodded. The Manhattan Project used remote areas for experiments. Things went wrong here, things they covered up. The creature, I said. The lizard man. Her eyes widened. You've seen it? I told her everything. Tommy's disappearance. The caves, what I'd found there. I even showed her my leg, the scales spreading across my skin. Instead of calling me crazy, she pulled out a tablet and showed me a classified file. Photos of tracks, scale samples, testimonies from other witnesses over the decades. The government had known all along. We think it was originally a natural mutation, she explained. Something that evolved in those deep caves thousands of years ago. The Creek people knew about it, left it offerings. But in the 40s, the radiation changed it, made it smarter, more aggressive, and somehow it learned to absorb traits from its victims, to transform them. Like it's doing to me, I said, looking at my leg. She nodded grimly. The venom is changing your DNA. We've seen it before in other bite victims. Most don't survive the transformation. How long do I have? 3 days, maybe 4. It happens. Faster during the new moon cycle. I showed her my plan, using electricity to create a trap throughout the southern section of the swamp. My grandfather's journals said it's vulnerable to electrical currents. That's why there's a taboo against swimming during thunderstorms. It could work, she said after looking at my drawings. But you'd need access to the main breeding chamber to destroy the eggs. Otherwise, they'll just keep coming. I know where it is, I said. I've been there. We spent the day setting up the trap. Diane brought specialized equipment from her truck. Stronger batteries, conductors, even underwater charges. By sunset, we had wired the entire area around the cave entrance. My condition was getting worse. The scales had spread up to my knee. My vision was changing too, sharper in the dark, but sensitive to bright light. And I could hear things I shouldn't be able to hear, like the movements of fish beneath the water. We need to go now, I told. Diane, as darkness fell. The transformation speeds up at night. We took my boat to the island. This time I wasn't following mysterious lights. I knew exactly where I was going. The cave entrance would be waiting below, and so would the creatures. Diane checked her equipment one last time. She had a special waterproof case containing the detonator for the charges. Once we set these in the main breeding chamber, we'll have 10 minutes to get out. I nodded, trying not to show how scared I was, not just of the creatures, but of what I was becoming. Already I could feel strange urges, a pull toward the water, a desire to swim down into the darkness. We slipped into the water and dove toward the cave entrance. This time I led the way confidently, my new vision perfect in the dark water. We swam through the tunnels I'd explored before, reaching the first chamber with its grim collection of bones. My God, Diane whispered when we surfaced. How many? People. Too many, I said, and we'll join them if we don't hurry. We moved quickly through to the egg chamber. It was empty of creatures, but the sacks on the walls pulsed with life. Diane began placing charges while I kept watch. A sound from deeper in the caves made me freeze. The clicking, hissing language of the lizard men. More than one voice. They were coming. Hurry, I whispered to Diane. She finished setting the last charge. Done. Now we need to get to the main chamber where your brother is. We followed the tunnel upward, the one I'd seen the creature take before. The voices were getting louder. As we reached the final cathedral-like chamber, we pressed ourselves against the wall, hiding in shadows. The sight before us was horrifying. 5 of the creatures stood around the glowing pool. One was clearly larger than the others, the one with part of Tommy's face. Next to the pool was Tommy himself, still in his sack, but more changed than before. His legs were now completely fused into a tail-like lower body covered in scales. But that wasn't all. There were other sacks around. The pool, each containing a person in various stages of transformation. Some were recent victims. I recognized Mark Wilson from his dog tag. Others were so changed they barely looked human anymore, and there were eggs, hundreds of them, pulsing with blue light, ready to hatch. The largest creature made a series of sounds, and the others responded. They seemed to be preparing for something, a ritual or a feeding. I couldn't tell. Now, Diane whispered, readying the detonator. Before she could press it, one of the creatures turned our way. It made a loud, alarming cry. Suddenly, all of them were looking in our direction. "Run!" I shouted, pushing Diane back toward the tunnel. We didn't make it. The creatures moved with incredible speed, cutting off our escape. 2 of them grabbed Diane, their claws digging into her arms. She dropped the detonator, which skidded across the rocky floor. I lunged for it, but the largest creature, the one with Tommy's face, was faster. It stood over me, hissing. Up close, I could see more clearly how Tommy's features were twisted into its scaly face. But the eyes were still somehow his. The creature didn't attack. It tilted its head, studying me. It reached out one clawed hand and touched my leg where the scales had spread. "Brother," it said in a voice that was partly hiss, partly Tommy's voice from long ago. My blood turned to ice. It recognized me. Some part of Tommy was still in there, still aware. The creature turned to the others and made a series of sounds. They dragged Diane toward one of the empty sacks near the pool. "No!" I shouted, struggling to my feet. The Tommy creature pushed me back down easily. Its strength was incredible. "Join us," it said, its words slurred but understandable. "Family below." "That's not Tommy talking," I said, trying to reach whatever was left of my brother. "Tommy, if you're in there, help us!" Something flickered in those yellow eyes, a moment of clarity, of humanity. In that instant, I saw the detonator just a few feet away. The creature saw where I was looking. For a long, terrible moment we stared at each other. Then it happened. The creature, Tommy, nodded once, very slightly. I dove for the detonator as Tommy let out a roar and turned on the other creatures. His claws slashed at them, creating chaos. The 2 holding Diane loosened their grip enough for her to break free. "Get out!" I yelled to her, my finger on the detonator button. "Get to the boat!" "Not without you," she shouted back. "I'm already changing," I said. "I won't make it. Go!" She hesitated, then ran for the tunnel. The creatures tried to follow, but Tommy blocked their path, fighting his own kind to give her time. I looked around at the eggs, at the poor souls trapped in the sacks, at what remained of my brother fighting. To his death, I knew what I had to do. "I'm sorry, Tommy," I whispered. As one of the creatures broke free and lunged at me, I pressed the button. The first explosion rocked the tunnel behind me, sealing off the escape route. The next charges went off in the egg chamber, then more throughout the cave system. Water began pouring in through fresh cracks in the walls. The creatures screeched in panic, all except Tommy, who turned to look at me one last time. In his eyes, I saw relief. The final charges detonated directly beneath us. The chamber floor collapsed, sending everything, the creatures, the eggs, Tommy and me, plunging into the glowing pool. The water burned like fire against my skin, even the scaled parts. As I sank deeper, the blue light surrounding me, I felt the changes accelerating. The scales spread across my chest, my arms, my face, but I also felt something else. a connection to the water, to the depths, and voices, so many voices of those who had been taken before. Tommy's voice among them clearer now. "Thank you," he seemed to say as darkness took me. I don't know how long I was in the darkness. Days, maybe weeks. My next clear memory is waking up on a muddy bank miles from where the caves had been. My body was covered in cuts and burns, but the scales were gone. The venom had been burned out of me somehow. When I finally made it back to civilization, I learned that Diane had made it out. She'd reported a massive sinkhole in the southern section of the swamp. The official story was that underground gas pockets had ignited, causing a natural disaster. The government moved in, quickly, buying up the land around the collapsed area for a wildlife preserve that no one was allowed to enter. Radiation warning signs went up. Armed guards patrolled the perimeter. I resigned from the Park Service. There was nothing left for me there. The nightmares about Tommy being dragged underwater finally stopped, replaced by different dreams. Dreams of swimming through dark waters, of yellow eyes watching from the depths, of voices calling me back. Sometimes, when it rains, the scars on my leg ache, and small patches of skin shimmer with a faint blue glow, a reminder of what's still down there waiting, because they can't all be gone. The swamp is too vast, the caves too deep, and every 70 years when the drought comes again and the waters run low, the deep places will be exposed once more. I've left my journal and maps with instructions that they be opened in 2064, when the next cycle begins. A warning for whoever is here then, because the depths below aren't empty, and somewhere in those black waters, something with my brother's face still swims, still remembers, still waits to come home. 3 years later, a young ranger walks along the shore of the Okefenokee swamp, checking water levels after a recent storm. She finds a waterproof bag half buried in the mud, washed up from somewhere deep in the restricted area. Inside is a journal. The handwriting starts out neat and becomes more distorted toward the end. The final entry reads, "The change is coming faster now." I feel the pull of the water growing stronger each night. I don't know how much longer I can fight it. If anyone finds this, stay away from the southern waters during the new moon. We're still here below the surface, and we remember our families. Pressed between the pages is a single scale that seems to glow faintly blue in the fading light. The ranger's radio crackles with static. Through the white noise comes a voice, distorted but somehow familiar to anyone who's grown up hearing the legend of Ranger Lamar, who disappeared during the great sinkhole disaster. "Come home," it says. "The water is waiting." The ranger looks out across the black water as the sun sets. For just a moment, she thinks she sees lights moving beneath the surface, forming patterns like stars, like a calling. My name is Howard Pierce, and I came to Glacier National Park to escape my memories. But memories, like the cold, have a way of following you. I stepped off the Park Service truck, my boots crunching on fresh snow as the wind bit at my face. The driver didn't offer to help with my bags. Nobody talked much to me these days. Word gets around when you're the guy who couldn't save his own family. "Radio when you need pickup," he said, already turning the truck around. "Could be a while with this storm coming." I watched the red taillights disappear down the mountain road, leaving me alone at Elkhorn Station, the most remote winter outpost. In the park, the building stood dark against white mountains, windows like empty eyes. My home for the next 4 months. As I fumbled with the keys, snow started falling again. Not the gentle kind from Christmas cards, but the hard, stinging type that hurts your skin. The weather report said this could be the worst winter since 1935. That meant something to me, though I wasn't sure why. Inside wasn't much warmer than outside. I hit the lights and looked around at the dusty common room with its worn couches. and old wood stove. The walls were lined with faded safety posters and maps of the park. Home sweet home. I'd been a ranger for 15 years, but this was my first time at Glacier. The assignment wasn't a promotion, it was punishment. 3 months ago, I'd started seeing things after the fire that took everything from me. Things no one believed. My boss called it a stress-induced breakdown and shipped me to the one place where my episodes wouldn't bother anyone. I dropped my bags and pulled out a wrinkled photo from my pocket. Sarah and Emma, smiling on our last camping trip. My wife's dark hair whipping in the wind, my daughter's missing front tooth in her wide grin. "I'm sorry," I whispered, running my thumb over their faces. The rest of my winter team would arrive tomorrow. 2 junior rangers and a meteorologist. Tonight, I had the station to myself with nothing but the howling wind for company. I lit the wood stove and unpacked, hanging my heavy parka on the hook by the door. The flames cast long shadows across the room. As I arranged my few belongings, I found the nightmares were already waiting for me. A children's drawing Emma had made, somehow packed with my clothes. White figures dancing in snow. She'd started drawing them a week before the fire. My hand shook as I tucked it away. I didn't want to remember the night of the fire, the heat, the screams, and worst of all, what I saw watching from the trees. Something tall and pale, with 2 long limbs, standing perfectly still as my world burned down. No one believed me. Sometimes I didn't believe myself. I tried the radio, wanting to hear another human voice, but got only static. Weird. It should have been working. As I adjusted the dial, the static changed, forming patterns that almost sounded like words in a language I couldn't quite place. Yet, something about it seemed familiar, like something from a dream I had as a kid. I switched it off, blaming tired ears. After eating a simple dinner of heated soup, I walked the perimeter of the station with my flashlight. The snow was falling harder now, erasing the world beyond a few feet. Wind moaned between the buildings, sounding almost like voices. Just as I was about to head back inside, my light caught something at the edge of the trees. A shape too tall to be human, too vertical to be a bear. It didn't move. I blinked and it was gone, leaving no footprints in the fresh snow. I told myself it was nothing, a trick of light and shadow, my mind playing tricks again. But as I hurried back to the cabin, locking the door behind me, I couldn't shake the feeling I was being watched. That night, I dreamed of ice and whispering voices, the same dreams that had haunted me since childhood. Only now, among those voices, I heard my daughter laughing. I woke with a start, the room freezing cold despite the fire. Frost had formed on the inside of my window in strange, geometric patterns. The same patterns Emma used to draw. Outside, the storm raged on, but something else was out there too, something that had followed me here. Or maybe something that had been waiting for me all along. Tomorrow the others would arrive, and I'd have to pretend everything was normal. But nothing had been normal since the fire. And something told me things were about to get much worse. Morning came with no sunrise, just a slight change from black to grey. I made coffee and waited for the others to arrive. The radio was still giving me nothing but static. Around noon, I heard engines outside. Through the swirling snow, 2 snowmobiles appeared carrying my team. Lisa Chen was a meteorologist with thick glasses and a serious face. Mike Dawson and Trent Cooper were the junior rangers, both in their 20s with the eager look of people who still thought working in the wilderness was an adventure. Behind them came a truck with supplies and our winter gear. The driver was a local Blackfoot man named Joe Running Bear, who'd worked at the park for 30 years. "Weather's getting worse," Joe said as we unloaded boxes. "Radios down all over the park. Never seen interference like this." "How long until it clears?" I asked. Joe looked up at the sky. "This isn't normal weather, Pierce. Something feels wrong." The way he said it sent a chill through me. As Joe was leaving, he pulled me aside. "You have the look," he said quietly. "What look?" "Like someone who's seen things others haven't." He pressed something into my hand, a small leather pouch. "Salt and sage, old protection. Keep it close." Before I could ask what he meant, he was gone, his truck disappearing into the white. That afternoon, we settled in. Lisa set up her weather equipment, frowning at readings that didn't make sense. Mike and Trent stored supplies and checked our emergency gear. I tried not to think about Joe's warning or the shape I'd seen last night. My husky, Max, had come with me as my service animal after the fire. He was usually calm, but since arriving, he'd been on edge, staring at the windows and whining softly. Now he sat by the door, ears perked, watching something I couldn't see. "What is it, boy?" I knelt beside him. Max looked at me, then back at the door, and let out a low howl that made everyone stop what they were doing. "That's not good," Trent said, trying to laugh it off. "Never seen a dog act like that unless there's a predator around." "Probably just a wolf," I said, not believing it. "Let's finish setting up." That night, we gathered around the wood stove. After dinner, outside, the wind howled, rocking the old building. The temperature had dropped to 20 below, colder than normal for early winter. "Tell us about yourself, Pierce," Mike said, trying to be friendly. "Heard you were Army before Park Service?" I nodded. "Cold weather survival specialist. Spent time in Alaska, Siberia, anywhere they needed someone who could handle extreme conditions." "That explains why they sent you here," Lisa said. "This storm is breaking records already. My instruments showed -40 in the shadows, which is impossible for this region in November." "Ever been to Glacier before?" Trent asked. I shook my head. "No, but my grandfather worked here in the 30s. Never talked about it." Something flickered in Lisa's eyes. "Was he here in 35? There was an expedition that winter. No one came back." The room got quiet. I felt cold suddenly, though I was sitting nearest the fire. "I don't know," I said. "My family never spoke about him much. After everyone went to bed, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Lisa's question. Why did it bother me so much? I got up and dug through my bag until I found an old photo album my mother had given me years ago. Inside was a faded picture of my grandfather as a young man, standing in front of a cabin with Glacier National Park Research Station written on a sign. The date on the back, December 1935. I sat on my bed, staring at the photo. My grandfather disappeared that winter. The official report said he died in an avalanche, but they never found his body. My family rarely spoke of him. Now I was here, at the same park, during another record-breaking winter. A coincidence? I didn't believe in coincidences anymore. A sound outside pulled me from my thoughts, a high-pitched whistle like wind through a narrow crack, but with a pattern to it. I went to the window and scraped away the frost. The storm had eased for a moment. In the moonlight, I could see our snowmobiles parked outside the equipment shed. Something moved between them, a dark shape, too tall and thin to be human. It seemed to glide rather than walk, leaving no footprints. Max growled beside me, the hair on his back standing up. "You see it too?" I whispered, relieved and terrified at the same time. "I'm not crazy." As if hearing me, the figure turned. I couldn't make out a face, just a pale smudge where features should be. It raised a long, thin arm toward my window. Instantly, frost spread across the glass in strange geometric patterns. The same patterns from my dreams. The same patterns Emma drew. I stumbled back, heart pounding. By the time I found the courage to look again, the figure was gone. The next morning, Trent discovered the snowmobiles wouldn't start. The engines were frozen solid, despite being stored in a heated garage. Strange symbols were etched into the metal, symbols that shouldn't have been possible to carve without tools. "What could do this?" Mike asked, running his fingers over the markings. "I recognized those symbols from somewhere." but couldn't place them. They looked almost like writing, but in no language I knew. Probably just ice damage, Lisa said, but her voice shook. Around the station, we found massive footprints in the snow, four-toed tracks that appeared suddenly and disappeared just as mysteriously, as if whatever made them could vanish at will. None of us said what we were thinking. These weren't animal tracks. Nothing living in these mountains made prints like these. That night, the temperature dropped to -50. Lisa's equipment malfunctioned, the displays shorting out one by one. Electronic devices began failing throughout the station, batteries draining instantly, flashlights dimming for no reason. Strangely, they worked fine when I handled them. Something about my touch seemed to protect them from whatever was affecting our equipment. We huddled in the common room, closer to the fire than necessary. No one wanted to be alone. "This is wrong," Lisa kept saying, checking her useless instruments. "These conditions aren't naturally possible." I watched frost form on the walls in those same geometric patterns. The cold seemed to move with purpose, intensifying around sunset and flowing through the station like a presence, like someone walking through. That night, I dreamed of ice again, of voices calling my name, of Emma standing in our burning house, pointing out the window at pale figures watching from the trees. "They're waiting for you, Daddy," she said in my dream. "They've always been waiting." I woke to screaming. I jumped out of bed and ran toward the screams. In the hallway, I found Trent backed against the wall, pointing at his room with a shaking hand. "There's someone in there," he whispered. "Something." Mike and Lisa came running. I grabbed the fire axe from the wall and slowly pushed open Trent's door. The room was empty but freezing cold. Frost covered everything, the bed, the walls, his clothes. On the window, ice crystals had formed in the exact pattern of a handprint. A hand with too many joints, fingers too long and thin to be human. "I woke up and it was standing over me," Trent said. "I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. It just looked at me." "What did it look like?" I asked, already knowing the answer. "Tall. So tall it had to bend to fit under the ceiling. White skin, but not like human skin, like ice. No face that I could see." He shuddered. "It reached for me, then just melted into the shadows when I screamed." No one slept the rest of that night. We gathered in the common room, keeping the fire blazing. Max wouldn't stop growling at the windows. "It's just the cold playing tricks," Lisa said, but even she didn't sound convinced. "Extreme temperatures can cause hallucinations." "We all saw the footprints," Mike said, "and the engines. Something's out there." I said nothing. I'd seen these things before, watching my house burn. Now they were here, in the most isolated place I could run to. Why? Morning brought no answers, just more snow and bone-chilling cold. Lisa's thermometer read -70, a temperature that shouldn't be possible in Montana. While the others checked our supplies, I searched the station's small library. There had to be records, some explanation of what happened in 1935. In a locked file cabinet, I found an old folder marked Incident Reports, 1935 to 36. Inside were yellowed papers, weather logs, and a sealed envelope with my name on it. Not just my name, my full name, Howard Thomas Pierce. My hands trembled as I opened it. The letter inside was dated December 15th, 1935, and signed by my grandfather, Thomas Pierce. If you're reading this, Howard, then they've called you here too. I prayed they wouldn't, that our family's connection to them would end with me. But the cold ones don't forget, and they don't forgive. They walk between the worlds of ice and flesh, waiting for the winters harsh enough to let them through. You've seen them since childhood, haven't you? In dreams? I did too. It's in our blood, this sight. The Blackfoot called our family the Watchers of the Cold Ones, those who can see what others can't. There's a cave deep in the North Glacier. That's where they emerge. That's where we found something ancient, something that should have stayed buried. If you're at the station, it means they're awakening again. They'll come for you, as they came for me. Salt and fire, Howard. It's all that holds them back. I'm sorry. I hope you'll understand why I couldn't come home. The letter ended there. I sat frozen, trying to make sense of it. My grandfather knew my name. He knew I would come here someday. How? I didn't realize I was crying until a tear hit the paper. My whole life I'd thought the dreams were just nightmares. The creatures I glimpsed as a child were just my imagination. Even what I saw the night of the fire, I'd tried to convince myself was grief and shock. But my grandfather had seen them too, and he'd known they would find me. I folded the letter and continued searching. In the back of the folder, I found a water-damaged journal, my grandfather's field notes. Most pages were ruined, but some entries were still readable. Deck 3, 1935. Found strange tracks around station, 4-toed. Too large for any known species. Thompson thinks bear, but bears don't walk on two legs in deep snow. Something's watching us. Deck 7. Temperature dropping beyond normal range. Radio interference worse. When we adjust frequency, it sounds like words. Jenkins says it's just static, but I know language when I hear it. Deck 10. Spotted 3 figures on the ridge today. Impossibly tall, moving like nothing I've ever seen. They disappeared when we tried to approach, left no tracks. Deck 12. Jenkins gone. Door left open. Tracked him 2 miles before his footprints just ended, like he vanished mid-step. Thompson thinks he fell into a crevasse, but there was no break in the snow. Found blue-white crystals where tracks ended. Burns to touch. The final entry was dated December 15th, the same day as the letter. They're coming tonight. I can hear them calling. The cave in the North Glacier holds the answer. God forgive me for what we awakened. Howard, if you're reading this someday, remember, they don't want to kill us. They want to change us. That's so much worse. I closed the journal, my mind racing. My grandfather hadn't died in an avalanche. Something had happened to him, something connected to these creatures, these cold ones. And now they were back. For me, I returned to the others with my findings, showing them the journal, but keeping the letter to myself. Some things were too personal, too hard to explain. "This is crazy," Mike said, but his voice had no conviction. We'd all seen too much, already to dismiss it. "The radio static," Lisa said suddenly. "It does sound like words sometimes." I nodded. "We need to find out what they're saying." That afternoon, we gathered around the radio. Lisa adjusted the frequency until the static formed patterns, high-pitched whistling sounds with rhythm and structure. "It's not any language I know," she said, recording the sounds, but I recognized it. It was the language from my dreams, the whispers that had haunted me since childhood. And somehow, I understood fragments. Cold, coming, pierce, return. I translated without knowing how I could. They all stared at me. "How do you know that?" Trent asked. "I don't know, I just do." We played the recording for Max. The moment he heard it, he began howling, not random barks, but in the same rhythmic pattern as the radio static. "That's impossible," Lisa whispered. "Dogs can't mimic speech patterns like that." But Max kept howling, his eyes fixed on the window where frost was forming in those same geometric patterns. Patterns I now recognized from my grandfather's journal. Crude drawings of crystalline structures he'd labeled their writing. That night, the temperature dropped even further. We gathered in the common room, burning every piece of wood we could find. Outside, the wind carried those whistling sounds. Closer now, surrounding the station, we took turns watching while others tried to sleep. During my shift, I noticed something strange. The cold spots in the room seemed to move, with purpose, avoiding the fire, circling our sleeping forms. When I walked toward one, my breath fogging in the air, it retreated as if alive. The cold wasn't just a condition, it was a presence. Around 3 a.m., Lisa shook me awake. "You need to see this," she whispered. Outside, in the moonlight, stood dozens of ice formations arranged in a circle around the station, each one roughly humanoid in shape, like crude sculptures watching our building. The wind had died completely, leaving an unnatural silence. "They weren't there 2 hours ago," she said. "I swear." As we watched, clouds covered the moon, plunging everything into darkness. When moonlight returned minutes later, the ice formations had moved, now standing a few feet closer to the station. "We need to wake the others," I said. "Now." We hurried inside, but I paused at the door, looking back at the silent watchers of ice. In the distance, beyond the circle, I saw movement. Tall figures gliding between trees, watching, waiting. They weren't just coming, they were already here. We gathered in the common room, speaking in hushed voices despite being alone. The windows were covered with thick frost, cutting us off from seeing outside. Maybe that was better. "We need to call for help," Mike said, pacing. "Radio's still dead," Lisa reminded him. "And even if it wasn't, who would believe us?" She was right. "I hadn't believed myself after the fire. There has to be another way to communicate," Trent said. "Emergency satellite phone." "In the equipment shed," I said. "But we'd have to go outside." We all looked at the frosted windows. None of us wanted to step outside. "What did your grandfather's journal say about these things?" Lisa asked me. "Is there a way to stop them?" "Salt and fire," I said, remembering the letter. "He said they fear salt and fire." "Salt? Like regular table salt?" Mike looked doubtful. "Road salt," I corrected. "We have bags of it in the shed for the paths." Trent stood up. "Then let's get the salt and the satellite phone. We've got flares and a flamethrower for avalanche control. That should handle the fire part." We suited up in our warmest gear, making a plan. Mike and I would go to the shed for the salt and equipment. Lisa and Trent would stay behind to keep the fire going and prepare a safe room. Before leaving, I took Joe's pouch of salt and sage from my pocket and divided it among us. "The Blackfoot have dealt with these things before," I said. "They know what works." The moment we stepped outside, the cold hit me like a physical blow. The thermometer by the door read -80, a temperature that shouldn't be possible. My breath froze instantly, ice crystals falling from my face mask. The ice formations still circled the station, but they seemed to have multiplied. Dozens of crude humanoid shapes watching with eyeless faces. In daylight, they were even more disturbing. Not like sculptures someone had made, but like something trying to form itself into human shape without understanding how. "Don't look at them," I told Mike. "Just focus on the shed." We moved carefully. Along the path, flamethrower ready. The snow crunched under our boots, the only sound in the unnatural silence. No birds, no wind, just our footsteps and ragged breathing. The equipment shed was only 50 yards away, but it felt like miles. With each step, I felt eyes on us, watching from the trees, from the ice. We made it to the shed and hurried inside. Mike's hands shook as he searched for the satellite phone while I found the road salt. We filled backpacks with as much as we could carry. "Got it," Mike said, holding up the phone. He tried to turn it on, but the screen remained dark. "Battery's dead. Must be the cold." "Bring it anyway. Maybe Lisa can get it working." As we prepared to leave, a sound from outside made us freeze, that high-pitched whistling closer now. Directly outside the shed. I peered through a frosted window. Something moved out there, tall, thin silhouettes gliding across the snow, circling the shed. Not the ice formations, but the creatures themselves. The winter watchers. They know. "We're here," I whispered to Mike. Fear showed in his eyes, but he nodded, gripping the flamethrower. "What's the plan?" "Salt first," I said, opening my backpack. "Then we run." I scattered salt across the shed entrance while Mike readied the flamethrower. When I finished, I gave him a nod. "Ready?" I asked. "No," he said with a weak smile. "But let's do it anyway." I threw open the door. 3 creatures stood directly outside, impossibly tall and thin, with elongated limbs and white skin that wasn't skin at all, but something like ice or bone. They had no features I could make out, just smooth, pale ovals where faces should be. They reached for us with long, skeletal fingers, but stopped at the line of salt. A high-pitched cry, part whistle, part scream, erupted from them. "Now!" I shouted. Mike fired the flamethrower. The creatures recoiled from the heat, their bodies seeming to waver like heat mirages. Where the flames touched them, their skin bubbled and melted, revealing something dark and ancient underneath. We ran, the creatures shrieking behind us. I looked back once to see them reforming, their bodies rebuilding from ice crystals in the air. The wounds we'd inflicted were healing, but slowly. The salt had worked, the fire had worked. But not for long. We sprinted back to the station, the creatures in pursuit but keeping their distance from our salt-filled backpacks. At the door, Lisa yanked us inside, then poured a thick line of salt across the threshold. "Did you get the phone?" she asked. Mike nodded, pulling it from his jacket. "Battery's dead. Let me see." Lisa took it. I might be able to rig something. We moved to the common room where Trent had built up the fire to blazing. He'd also covered the windows with salt lines and drawn strange symbols on the walls. Copies of the Blackfoot cave paintings he'd found in an old book. "They show how to keep the cold ones out," he explained. Lisa worked on the satellite phone while I told them what we'd seen. "How do we fight something that can repair itself?" Mike asked, still pale from our encounter. "Fire hurts them," I said. "It slows them down. But my grandfather thought they could be killed. There must be a way." Night fell too quickly. The temperature dropped further, our breath freezing even inside the station. The fire seemed to be losing its battle with the cold, the flames shrinking despite our efforts. "Something's wrong with the air," Lisa said, checking her instruments. "The oxygen levels are dropping." That's when we heard it, ice cracking. The sound came from Trent's room. We rushed in to find the window completely shattered, ice spears growing inward from the frame. Cold air rushed in, bringing with it that whistling sound. "They're coming through," Trent yelled, backing away. I grabbed a flare from my pack and lit it, throwing it toward the window. The red light illuminated a nightmare, a creature halfway through, its body contorting impossibly as it squeezed through. The flare hit it, and its skin sizzled, black smoke rising. We slammed the door and barricaded it with a dresser, but already frost was forming around the edges. "We need to seal the whole station," I said, "every entry point." We worked frantically, pouring salt across every window, every door, every crack. The salt lines glowed faintly in the darkness, a barrier between us and them. It wasn't enough. That night, the temperature inside the station plummeted. Our breath turned to ice crystals that hung in the air. The fire struggled, then died despite our efforts. The cold had become a living thing, pushing against our defenses, searching for a way in. We huddled together in our sleeping bags, taking turns to watch. During my shift, I noticed something terrible. The salt lines were dissolving, turning to slush as if being melted deliberately. I woke the others, but it was too late. The front door burst open with a crash, and cold rushed in like a flood. With it came fog, not natural fog, but a freezing mist that made my skin burn. In the doorway stood a single creature, taller than the others, its body glowing with a faint blue light. It didn't enter, but it didn't need to. The mist was part of it, spreading through the station, seeking us out. "Run!" I shouted, grabbing my pack. We fled to the back of the station, toward the storage area with its heavy metal door. As we ran, the mist followed, touching Mike's exposed hand. He screamed as his skin instantly frosted over, turning blue-white. Lisa and Trent pulled him into the storage room. I threw salt across the doorway and slammed the door shut just as the mist reached it. For now, we were safe. Mike's hand was bad, the skin hard and crystalline where the mist had touched him. Lisa worked to warm it while Trent and I reinforced our position. "What is that stuff?" Trent asked, his voice shaking. "Their breath," I said, remembering my grandfather's journal. They exhale freezing mist that causes hallucinations before hypothermia sets in. As if in response, Mike began to mutter, his eyes unfocused. Can you see them? They're beautiful, like ice angels. He's hallucinating, Lisa said, wrapping his hand. We need to keep him warm. But our supplies were limited. We had a few emergency blankets, some flares, and whatever salt remained in our packs. Outside our door, the temperature kept dropping. That's when I heard my daughter's voice. Daddy? Why did you leave us, Daddy? It came from beyond the door, perfect and clear, exactly as I remembered. Emma, I whispered, moving toward the sound. Lisa grabbed my arm. It's not real, Howard. It's what they do. They use the voices of the ones we've lost. I knew she was right, but it didn't stop the pain or the doubt. What if I was wrong? What if Emma was really out there somehow? Through the small window in the door, I caught a glimpse of movement, a small figure in a nightgown standing in the cold mist. My daughter, just as she looked the night of the fire. She's out there, I said, my hand on the door. No, Trent said firmly. That's not your daughter. They're trying to get you to open the door. The mist swirled outside, forming shapes I recognized. My wife, my daughter, smiling at me through the glass. Their skin was blue-white, their limbs longer than they should be, but their faces were perfect. Familiar. Come home, Howard, my wife's voice called. We've missed you. Part of me knew it wasn't real, but part of me wanted to believe. As I struggled with myself, something hit the door, hard. The metal dented inward from a force no human could produce. Again and again, something massive slammed against our final barrier. We backed away, watching in horror as the door began to give. The mist seeped through the cracks, bringing with it that whistling language I now understood all too well. They're saying they want us to join them, I translated, to become like them. The door couldn't hold much longer. We were trapped, with nowhere left to run. The door wouldn't hold much longer. We backed into the corner of the storage room, watching as the metal bent inward with each impact. We need a plan, Lisa said, her voice surprisingly steady. What about the emergency exit? She was right. The storage room had a second door, a narrow maintenance exit that led outside. We'd been so focused on the creatures trying to break in that we'd forgotten about it. It's our only chance, I said, but we'll be exposed once we're outside. Trent was checking Mike, whose condition was getting worse. The blue-white crystals had spread from his hand up his arm, his skin hardening like ice. His eyes were glassy, staring at nothing. We can't leave him, Trent said. We won't, I promised. Though I wasn't sure how we'd move him. We gathered what little we had left, salt, flares, and the emergency blankets. I made a plan. We'd use the last of our salt to create a path from the exit door toward the tree line. Once outside, we'd run for the old ranger cabin about a mile east. It was small, but had a radio that might still work. Just as I finished explaining, the storage room door gave way with a terrible screech of metal. Cold mist flooded in. Now, I shouted. Trent and I lifted Mike between us while Lisa threw open the emergency exit. We stumbled into the night, the cold hitting us like a wall. Outside was a nightmare. The storm had stopped, leaving an eerie stillness. The moon shone bright on the snow, casting long shadows, and all around the station stood the creatures. Dozens of them, their tall, thin forms perfectly still. Watching, waiting, we ran, following our planned route. The creatures didn't move at first, seemingly surprised by our escape. Then, as one, they turned toward us. "Keep going," I shouted. "Don't look back." But it was hard not to. Behind us, the creatures moved with impossible speed, gliding over the snow rather than walking. Their bodies flowed like water, changing shape to move faster. Lisa threw salt behind us, creating a line the creatures hesitated to cross. It bought us precious seconds. We were halfway to the tree line when Mike suddenly stiffened in our arms. His whole body was turning blue-white, crystals spreading visibly across his skin. "Put me down," he said, his voice strange and hollow. "I can walk." Something was wrong. His eyes had changed, the pupils expanding until they filled the entire eye with a pale blue light. "Mike?" Trent asked. "You okay, man?" Mike smiled, but it wasn't his smile anymore. It was too wide, showing teeth that seemed sharper than before. "I understand now," he said in that same hollow voice. "They don't want to hurt us. They want to help us." He pulled away from us with surprising strength, turning back toward the approaching creatures. "Mike!" Lisa called. "Don't!" But he kept walking, arms outstretched as if greeting old friends. The nearest creature reached for him, its long fingers touching his face. What happened next still haunts my dreams. Mike's body seemed to shudder, then stretch, his limbs elongating as if being pulled from within. His skin turned completely white, hardening into something that wasn't skin at all. In seconds, he wasn't Mike anymore. He had become one of them. The new creature that had been Mike turned toward us, its face a smooth oval, with no features except those glowing blue eyes. When it spoke, it used Mike's voice, but wrong somehow, like someone playing a recording at the wrong speed. "Howard Pierce," it said. "We've waited so long for you." I stumbled back, pulling Lisa and Trent with me. "Run!" I shouted. We fled into the trees, the creatures close behind. I knew we couldn't outrun them for long. We needed shelter. Through the trees, I spotted an opening in the hillside, a cave entrance half hidden by snow. I changed direction, pulling the others with me. "In there!" I pointed. We ducked inside just as the creatures reached the tree line. The cave was dark and cold, but at least it was shelter. We moved deeper, our flashlights casting long shadows on the rock walls. "What happened to Mike?" Trent asked, his voice breaking. "What did they do to him?" "They changed him," I said, remembering my grandfather's final warning. "That's what they want. Not to kill us, to transform us." As we moved deeper into the cave, Lisa's flashlight caught something on. The walls, paintings, ancient images in red ochre showing tall, pale figures emerging from what looked like glaciers. And among them, a smaller figure with a distinctive mark on its face, a mark like my own birthmark. "These are Blackfoot," Lisa said, examining the paintings. "Thousands of years old." "They've been here before," I realized. "Many times." As we studied the paintings, a whistling sound echoed through the cave. "They had found us." "Deeper," I said. "We need to keep moving." The cave narrowed, then opened into a larger chamber. What we found there stopped us cold. The walls were lined with bodies, human bodies frozen in the ice. But they weren't dead, at least not in the normal sense. Their eyes were open, aware, following our movements, and I recognized some of them. Their clothing, their gear. They wore the uniforms of the 1935 expedition. Among them was an older man, whose face I knew from family photos. My grandfather, perfectly preserved in the ice, his eyes moving to focus on me. "Oh God," Lisa whispered. My grandfather's lips didn't move, but I heard his voice in my head. "Howard, you came!" I stepped closer, drawn by a force I couldn't explain. "Grandfather, what is this place?" "The nursery," his voice answered in my mind. "Where we wait to become." Behind us, the whistling grew louder. The creatures were coming. "What do they want?" I asked aloud. This time it was Mike's voice that answered, not from my head, but from the entrance to the chamber. "To survive, to adapt." He stood there, his new form silhouetted against the darkness. Behind him were more creatures, watching silently. "The ice is melting," Mike continued, his voice hollow. "Their home is disappearing. They were supposed to sleep for another century, but humans have changed the world, warmed it too quickly." "What are they?" Trent asked. "They've had many names," Mike said. "Winter Watchers. Cold ones. They live between states, not fully solid, not fully spirit. And they've been watching your family for generations, Howard." "Why me?" I demanded. "Why my family?" "Because you can hear them. You always could. The gift runs in your blood, a genetic anomaly that lets you perceive their frequency, their language. As he spoke, I felt something stir in the back of my mind. Memories not my own. My grandfather's memories flowing into me. I saw the 1935 expedition, the discovery of something buried deep in the ice. Something ancient. You found something, I said, understanding now. Something that should have stayed buried. Mike's head tilted at an impossible angle. The Alpha, the first one. A fragment of consciousness from another world, trapped in the ice millions of years ago. It called to your grandfather, as it called to you. More memories flooded in. My grandfather entering this same cave, finding the bodies, touching the ice wall at the far end of the chamber, breaking through to something beyond. Where is it? I asked. The Alpha? Mike's featureless face somehow conveyed a smile. You've seen it already, Howard. Your wife, your daughter, the fire. Cold realization washed over me. The fire at my house, that wasn't an accident. No, Mike confirmed. The Alpha needed you here. It needed you to come willingly. Grief is a powerful motivator for humans. You killed my family? Rage filled me, hot against the cave's cold. Not killed, Mike corrected. Transformed, changed. They're part of us now, part of the Alpha. That's when I saw them. Two smaller figures moving forward from the shadows. Their forms were white and crystalline, but I recognized the way they moved. The shape of their faces, though changed, was unmistakable. Sarah. Emma. Daddy. Emma's voice came from the smaller figure. We've been waiting for you. I stepped back, horror and longing battling inside me. They weren't human anymore, but they weren't gone either. They existed in some in-between state. Not living, not dead. What happens now? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Now, Mike said, you join us. Your bloodline carries what we call the cold gift, genetic compatibility for transformation. It's why the Alpha has watched your family for generations, waiting for the right vessel. As he spoke, the walls of ice began to glow with a pale blue light. Something was awakening deeper in the cave, something vast and ancient. The Alpha is waiting for you, Howard, Mike continued. It's been waiting for a very long time. I looked at Lisa and Trent, fear plain on their faces, then at the creatures that had once been my wife and daughter, standing silently, watching, and beyond them, the other creatures, dozens now filling the chamber entrance. We were trapped between them and whatever lay deeper in the cave, between the Winter Watchers and their Alpha. I had to make a choice. Time seemed to freeze as I stood there, looking at what remained of my family. They weren't human anymore, but I could still see traces of who they had been, in the way they moved, in the voices that somehow came from their featureless faces. Howard, Lisa whispered behind me. We need to go. But where? The creatures blocked our exit, and something was pulling me deeper into the cave toward whatever waited in the glowing ice. You have to see it, Emma's voice said. The Alpha wants to meet you. I felt a hand grip my arm. Trent, his face pale with fear but determined. Don't listen to them. They're not your family anymore. The creature that had been Mike made a sound, like cracking ice. We don't have time for this. The transformation has already begun in him. Can't you feel it, Howard? The cold inside you. And I could. Since arriving at the park, I'd noticed how the bitter cold bothered me less than the others. How electronics worked for me when they failed for everyone else. How the frost patterns seemed familiar, like a language I almost knew. What happens if I go with you? I asked. What about my friends? They can join us too, Sarah's voice answered. Everyone can become part of the new world. The Alpha will change everything. What new world? Lisa demanded. Mike's head tilted at that impossible angle again. The world of ice, as it was before, as it should be. Suddenly I understood. You want to trigger another ice age. The warming is killing us, Emma's voice explained. The ice is our home, and it's disappearing. The Alpha has slept too long. If it doesn't act now, we'll all die. By killing everyone else? Trent asked. Not killing, Sarah corrected. Transforming, adapting. Humans will survive, just in a different form. I looked at my friends, then back at the creatures. A terrible choice was forming in my mind. I'll go, I said finally. I'll see the Alpha. But Lisa and Trent stay here, unharmed. The creatures seem to confer without speaking, that whistling language passing between them. Finally, Mike nodded. Agreed. But only if they don't interfere. I turned to Lisa and Trent. If I don't come back, try to reach the ranger cabin. The radio might still work. Howard, you can't, Lisa began. I have to know, I said. They're my family. They're not, Trent insisted. Not anymore. Maybe he was right, but I had to see for myself. I followed the creatures deeper into the cave, leaving my friends behind. Emma walked beside me, her crystalline hand slipping into mine. It was cold, but not painfully so. In fact, I barely noticed the cold anymore. The tunnels sloped downward, the ice walls glowing brighter with each step. I realized we were heading deep into the glacier itself, into ice that had formed thousands of years ago. When did you know? I asked Emma. That you were changing? Before the fire, her voice replied. I started having dreams, seeing the tall people in the woods. They told me we were special, that we had the gift. The cold gift, I remembered. What is it? A genetic thing, she said, sounding so much like my little girl explaining her homework. Something in our blood that helps us survive the change. Most people just freeze. We become more. We emerged into a massive cavern, the ceiling rising hundreds of feet above us. The walls were pure ice, glowing with blue-white light. And at the center, suspended in a column of ice, was something I can barely describe. It was enormous, easily 15 feet tall, with a body that seemed both solid and fluid at once. It had features from many creatures, limbs like a human, but too many of them. Antlers like a deer, but made of ice crystals, eyes that glowed with pale blue light. But strangest of all, parts of it seemed to incorporate human forms, faces and bodies half merged with its crystalline structure. The Alpha. It didn't speak, not in words. But as I stared at it, images and feelings flooded my mind. I saw the Earth, as it was millions of years ago, during the Ice Ages. I saw a consciousness traveling through space, crashing into our frozen world. I saw it adapting, becoming one with the ice, creating the first winter watches as extensions of itself. I saw it sleeping as the world warmed, waking briefly during particularly cold winters to check on the changing planet. I saw its panic as it sensed the ice melting too fast, the climate warming too quickly for it to adapt, and I saw my family line, generations of people with the rare genetic marker it needed. My ancestors, my grandfather, myself, Emma, the perfect vessels to help it survive in a warming world. You want to use me, I said aloud. To do what? More images flowed into my mind. The Alpha, merged with a human host, would have the power to change weather patterns on a global scale, to trigger a new ice age. It had tried before, with my grandfather, but the connection hadn't been strong enough. But I was different. My exposure to extreme cold environments during my military training, combined with the genetic marker I carried, made me ideal, and my daughter, she was even more compatible, her young mind more malleable to the Alpha's influence. That's why they had taken her first, to prepare her, to make her the bridge between me and the Alpha. And if I refuse, I asked. The images shifted, the world continuing to warm, the ice retreating, the winter watchers dying out. The Alpha, trapped in the last pocket of ice, gradually losing consciousness, Extinction, I understood its desperation, but I also saw what wasn't showing me, the billions of humans who would die in a new ice age, the civilization that would collapse. There has to be another way, I said. Emma's hand tightened in mine. There isn't, Daddy, we've looked. This is the only way we survive. I looked at her crystalline form, trying to see my daughter in the alien shape. Emma, are you still in there? Really you? I'm more now, she said. But yes, I remember everything. I remember you reading me stories. I remember Mom singing to me when I couldn't sleep. I remember the fire. The fire. The thought of it brought a flash of anger. You let me think you were dead. You let me blame myself. We needed your grief, Sarah's voice said as she stepped forward. It made you vulnerable, open to the call. I pulled my hand away from Emma's. You used me. Used my love for you. To survive, she said simply. I looked up at the Alpha, its massive form pulsing with light. If I agreed to join with it, I would become something beyond human. I would have power I could barely imagine, and I would be with my family again in some form, but the cost was too high. I can't, I said. I won't help you destroy the world. The temperature in the cavern plummeted instantly. The creatures around me went rigid, their forms hardening, as if genuinely freezing for the first time. The Alpha's glow intensified, its shape shifting within the ice column. Then you leave us no choice, Mike's voice said behind me. The transformation has already begun in you. It will just happen more painfully. I turned to find myself surrounded. The creatures were closing in, including the forms of my wife and daughter. Their once familiar shapes now looked predatory, hungry. I'm sorry, Daddy, Emma's voice said, but there was something different in it now, something ancient and cold that wasn't my daughter at all. I backed away, but there was nowhere to run. The Alpha pulsed behind me, its light growing stronger. I felt a cold sensation spreading from my core outward, the transformation beginning whether I wanted it or not. Then I heard a sound that made the creatures turn, the unmistakable whoosh of a flamethrower igniting. Lisa and Trent had followed us, against all odds. They stood at the tunnel entrance, armed with the flamethrower we'd brought from the station and several flares. Howard, get down, Lisa shouted. I dropped to the ground as a stream of fire arced over me, hitting the nearest creatures. They shrieked, that high, whistling cry, their bodies momentarily destabilizing in the heat. I scrambled to my feet and ran toward my friends. Behind me, the Alpha's light pulsed frantically, the ice around it cracking as it tried to break free from its frozen prison. We need to collapse the tunnel, I said as I reached them. Trap it here. Trent pulled something from his pack, the emergency demolition charges we kept at the station for avalanche control. Way ahead of you, he said. We retreated up the tunnel, setting charges as we went. The creatures followed, but more slowly now, wary of the fire Lisa kept ready. When we reached the main chamber where the frozen bodies were kept, I paused, looking at my grandfather's face in the ice. His eyes were alert, watching me. I felt his presence in my mind again. I'm sorry, I told him. I can't let it happen. His voice answered in my thoughts. I know, I tried to warn you, but part of me hoped you would join us. It's not death, Howard. It's something else. Something that would kill everyone I'm sworn to protect, I said. His eyes seemed sad. Then do what you must. But know this isn't the end. The Alpha has waited millions of years. It can wait longer. We finished setting the charges and retreated to the cave entrance. The creatures were closing in again, their movements more desperate. Among them were Sarah and Emma, their forms gliding over the ice with predatory grace. Howard, please, Sarah's voice called. Don't do this. We can be together again. For a moment, I hesitated. Despite everything, I still loved them, or what remained of them. The detonator, Trent reminded me, holding it out. I took it, my hand shaking. I'm sorry, I said to the creatures that had been my family, but this has to end. It won't end, Emma's voice promised. We're part of you now. We always will be. I pressed the detonator. The explosion shook the mountain, the sound deafening in the confined space. The tunnel collapsed in a shower of ice and rock. The creatures caught in the blast shattered like glass, their forms breaking apart. But as the dust settled, I saw something that made my blood run cold. The creatures weren't destroyed. Their shattered pieces were moving, reforming, rebuilding themselves. "Run!" I shouted. "Back to the station!" We fled into the night, the storm having started again, snow whipping around us. Behind us, the creatures emerged from the ruined cave, their numbers fewer but still dangerous. Sarah and Emma were among them, their forms moving with purpose toward us. Toward me. They won't stop, I realized. Not while the Alpha still exists. And I knew then what I had to do. We ran through the blinding snow, our lungs burning with each breath. The station loomed ahead, dark and silent, no safe haven now, just a place to make our final stand. The boiler room, I gasped as we burst through the door. It's the warmest place. We barricaded ourselves inside the ancient heating system, giving off just enough warmth to keep the room above freezing. My mind was racing, trying to form a plan. "What now?" Lisa asked, her face streaked with tears and sweat despite the cold. "I know what the Alpha is," I said, "and I know how to stop it." The knowledge had come to me in that cavern, flowing from my grandfather's memories into mine. The Alpha wasn't just a creature. It was a fragment of something ancient, a cosmic consciousness that had crashed to Earth millions of years ago. Ice was merely its vessel, not its true form, and it had a weakness. It's connected to all of them, I explained. Every Winter Watcher is an extension of the Alpha. If we destroy it, we destroy them all. "How?" Trent demanded. "That thing is huge, and it's buried in solid ice." "Fire won't be enough," I agreed. "We need something hotter, something that can reach the core of the glacier." Lisa's eyes widened. "The geological survey equipment. There's a thermal drilling unit. It uses superheated plasma to take core samples from deep ice." "Where is it?" I asked. "East storage shed," she said. "But Howard, it's not designed as a weapon. It's for research. It's all we've got," we gathered. What we needed. The few flares we had left, road salt, and our warmest gear. The plan was simple. Get to the east shed, retrieve the drill, then return to the cave and use it to reach the Alpha's core. "What about Sarah and Emma?" Trent asked quietly. "Can you do what needs to be done?" I looked at him, feeling the cold, spreading inside me. The transformation was happening slowly, but it was happening. Soon I'd be like Mike. "They're not my family anymore," I said, trying to convince myself. "They're part of the Alpha now." We were ready to leave when a sound froze us in place, whistling directly outside the boiler room door. They had found us. Out the maintenance. "Unhatch," I whispered, pointing to a small service door that led outside. We slipped out into the storm, the wind masking our footsteps. Around the station, I could see them, tall, thin silhouettes moving through the snow, searching. Among them were the smaller forms I recognized too well. We kept low, using the storage buildings for cover as we made our way to the east shed. Inside, Lisa quickly found what she was looking for. A device about the size of a jackhammer with a cord connecting to a heavy backpack power unit. "It can melt through 50 feet of solid ice in minutes," she explained. "But the power only lasts about 10 minutes. "That's all we'll need," I said. As we prepared to leave, I felt it, a sharp pain in my chest like ice forming around my heart. I gasped, dropping to one knee. "Howard!" Lisa knelt beside me, concerned. I pulled open my jacket. Through my shirt, we could see it, blue-white crystals forming under my skin, spreading outward from my core. "It's happening to me," I whispered. "I don't have much time." "We need to hurry," Trent said, helping me up. Outside, the storm had intensified, but I barely felt the cold now. Part of me welcomed it. the same part that could hear the whistling language clearly, that understood what the creatures wanted. The part of me that was becoming one of them. We made our way back toward the cave, but found our path blocked. The creatures had formed a line between us and the mountain, with Sarah and Emma at the center. "We know what you're planning," Sarah's voice carried through the wind. "You can't reach the Alpha." I stepped forward, the drill heavy in my hands. "Let us pass." "It's too late for you anyway," Emma's voice added. "Look at yourself, Daddy. You're already changing." She was right. The crystals had spread up my neck now, my skin turning that same blue-white color. Soon, I wouldn't be human at all. But I wasn't gone yet. "Lisa," I said, not looking back, "you and Trent get to the cave. I'll hold them off." "We're not leaving you," she started. "You have to," I insisted. "I'm the only one who can get close to the Alpha now. They won't see me as a threat until it's too late." They hesitated. Then Trent took the drill from me. "What's your plan?" "They want me," I said simply. "So I'll give them what they want." I stepped forward, walking toward the line of creatures, toward my family. "I'm ready," I called out. "I understand now. I want to join you." The creatures parted, creating a path. Sarah and Emma moved forward, their crystalline hands reaching. "For me, I knew you'd come back to us," Sarah's voice said. Behind me, I sensed Lisa and Trent slipping away, circling around toward the cave. The creatures seemed focused entirely on me. I let Sarah and Emma lead me toward the trees, toward what I knew was a different entrance to the Alpha's cavern. I could feel its pull now, like a magnet drawing me closer. The cold inside me responded, the crystals spreading faster. "The Alpha is waiting," Emma said. "It's been waiting for so long." We walked through the forest, the other creatures following behind. Snow had stopped falling, the storm unnaturally pausing as if holding its breath. The moon broke through the clouds, casting blue light on the white landscape. I saw Lisa and Trent reach the cave entrance in the distance. Good. They would have time. We reached a crevice in the ice, narrow but widening as it went down. The entrance the creatures used. I could see the blue glow emanating from deep below. As we prepared to descend, I heard a rumble from the direction of the main cave. The creatures heard it too, their heads turning as one. "Now!" I shouted. I pulled the last flare from my jacket and struck it, the sudden heat and light causing the nearest creatures to recoil. I threw it at their feet, creating a barrier of fire, then ran toward the main cave. Behind me, the whistling turned to shrieks of rage. The creatures recovered quickly, following me through the snow, but I had a head start. I reached the cave, just as Trent emerged, his face grim. "It's done," he said. "We drilled down to it, but something's happening." The ground beneath us shook violently. From deep within the mountain came a sound like nothing I'd ever heard. Part scream, part cracking ice, part something alien and terrible. "Where's Lisa?" I asked. "Still inside. She's setting the final charge." Another tremor, stronger this time. The ice around the cave entrance began to crack. "We need to get her out," I said, starting forward. Trent grabbed my arm. "Howard, look at yourself." I glanced down. The crystals had covered most of my body now. My hands were turning translucent, fingers lengthening. The transformation was almost complete. "I'm still me," I insisted. "For now." We hurried inside, finding Lisa at the tunnel entrance. The drill had created a narrow shaft, straight down, reaching the Alpha in its ice prison. She was fixing something to the rim of the hole, the detonator for the remaining charges. "It's working," she said without looking up. "The heat is destabilizing it somehow. I can hear it screaming." The mountain shook again. Around us, the frozen bodies embedded in the walls had begun to crack, the ice holding them melting from some intense heat below. "We need to go," I said. She finished with the detonator and stood. When she saw me, her eyes widened in shock. "Howard, I know," I said. "We don't have much time, for the mission or for me." We hurried toward the exit, the tremors growing stronger. Behind us, the high-pitched wailing of the Alpha grew louder, more desperate. Just as we reached the cave entrance, they were there, the creatures, blocking our path. Sarah and Emma stood at the front, their crystalline forms glowing with an internal light. "You betrayed us," Emma's voice said, but it didn't sound like her anymore. It was the Alpha speaking through her. "You betrayed me first," I replied. "When you took my family." Sarah's form stepped forward. "We can still be together, forever. The Alpha will forgive you." For a moment I felt the pull, the desire to give in, to join them, to be with Sarah and Emma again in whatever form. The cold inside me responded, the transformation accelerating, but then I thought of all the people who would die if the Alpha succeeded, of Mike, changed against his will, of my grandfather, trapped for decades in living ice. "No," I said firmly. "This ends now." I turned to Lisa and Trent. "Get to the station, don't wait for me." "Howard," Lisa began. "Go!" I shouted. They hesitated, then ran, slipping past the creatures who seemed focused entirely on me. I faced what remained of my family. "You wanted me. Here I am." I stepped back into the cave. The creatures followed, drawn by some command from the Alpha below. As they entered, I moved deeper, toward the hole Lisa had drilled. The shaft glowed with intense blue light, heat radiating from it despite the surrounding ice. At the bottom, I could just make out the massive form of the Alpha, writhing as the drill's heat disrupted its frozen prison. The detonator sat on the edge of the hole, a simple button that would trigger the charges Lisa had set deep below. Reached for it just as the creatures surrounded me. Sarah and Emma stood closest, their forms flickering between solid and something else, as if the Alpha's distress was affecting them too. "If you do this, you'll die too," Sarah's voice warned. "You're too far along in the change. When the Alpha dies, all its extensions die." I looked down at my body, now more ice than flesh. The cold had reached my heart, my lungs. I could feel the Alpha in my mind now, its alien consciousness touching mine. She was right. I was part of it now. If it died, I would too. "I know," I said. I pressed the detonator. For one frozen moment, nothing happened. Then a rumble deep below, building rapidly to a roar. The shaft exploded with light, blinding me. Heat rushed upward, melting the ice around us instantly. The creatures screamed, their bodies beginning to dissolve as the Alpha's connection to them was severed. I watched as Sarah and Emma's forms lost cohesion, melting back into the water they had partly become. "I love you," I told them as they disappeared. "I always will." Then the pain hit me, intense, burning pain, as the ice crystals in my body began to melt. I fell to my knees as the cave collapsed around me, tons of ice and rock tumbling down. In my final moments, as the Alpha's dying screams echoed in my mind, I experienced something strange, its memories flowing into me, millions of years of existence. The cold emptiness of space, the long sleep in the ice, the watching, the waiting, and something else, a sense of relief. An ancient consciousness finally finding rest, then darkness. They found me 3 days later, when the rescue team finally reached the park. I was half buried in snow outside the collapsed cave, my skin covered in strange frost patterns that doctors later said resembled crystalline structures under a microscope. By all rights, I should have been dead. The temperature had been 40 below that night, yet I was alive, my core body temperature impossibly low, but stable. Lisa and Trent survived too. They told the authorities about the storm, about Mike's death in what they called an accident. They didn't mention the creatures. Who would believe them? The official report listed the incident as a natural disaster, an avalanche triggered by unusual weather patterns. The bodies in the ice were never found. The cave entrance was completely sealed by the collapse. As for me, I spent months in the hospital. The doctors couldn't explain the strange patterns under my skin, or why I no longer felt cold, even in freezing temperatures. or why electronics sometimes failed around me unless I touched them directly. I never told them about the whispers I still hear sometimes in the static of a radio, or the shapes I glimpse moving through snowstorms, or how, on particularly cold nights, I can feel the ice forming inside me again, just a little. The winter watchers are gone, their connection to our world severed when the Alpha died. But something of them remains, in the glaciers, slowly melting. In the warming world, in the cold places where humans rarely go, and in me. I returned to Glacier National Park the following winter. The new station staff gave me odd looks, but they didn't say anything. I think they could sense something different about me. I stood at the site of the collapsed cave, now just another snowdrift on the mountainside. No sign remained of what had happened there, but as I turned to leave, I saw them, footprints in the fresh snow, small, like a child's. They led away from the drift, then simply stopped, as if whoever made them had vanished into thin air. Next to the last footprint was a drawing in the snow, a simple pattern of geometric shapes, the same pattern Emma used to draw, the same pattern. Now etched permanently under my skin, I didn't feel afraid. Whatever part of her remains, whatever echo of the Alpha still exists in this world, it's connected to me now. Watching, waiting. For what? I don't know. But when the coldest winters come, I stand at my window and look out at the snow. And sometimes, just sometimes, I see tall figures moving between the trees, their white forms almost invisible against the white landscape. And I wonder if someday they'll call me to join them again. And I wonder what my answer will be.